that says subscribe. If you guys are on Twitch, it's a purple button that says follow. Do me that favor real quick. Every single episode of this podcast is brought to you by Marco V Cigars, and I want to tell you about their 6-step process, okay? Step 1, from the seeds to the 9-foot tall tobacco plants, every step is monitored by Marco V's agricultural experts. Each tobacco leaf section produces a slightly different flavor, so leaves are harvested in small groups to precisely select the flavor of each cigar. Step 2, leaves from the part of the tobacco plant are hung. God damn it, I can't read, you guys. Step 2 is the curing. Leaves from every part of the tobacco plant are hung in the Dominican and Nicaraguan curing barns, beginning the leaves transition into the brown, curled tobacco that you guys see inside of the cigar. Step 3 is the fermentation process. After the curing barns, the leaves are fermented in pylons to remove distracting taste and enhance the purity of the tobacco. The entire process can take up to a year, and that's time well spent in the pursuit of the best cigars in the world. Step 4 is the roll. Each of the cigar rollers has at least 15 years of experience, guaranteeing that your cigar was made by somebody who knows and loves this art. Quality still comes from the hands. Step 5, that's the aging process. Marco V cigars are aged for up to 5 years, allowing for flavors to blend and mature. This final process paves the way for a smooth, unique taste in every Marco V cigar. And finally, it's step 6, the smoke. At long last, the cigars are banded, packed, shipped, and arrive to you to enjoy. Celebrate your triumphs by going to Marco V Cigars and using promo code Extravaganza 15 to save yourself some money. And they always have fast and free shipping as well, you guys. Every episode of this podcast is also brought to you by Tone Vault Audio and Media. Here's the deal. Go to tone-vault.com/JSE and use promo code 15SINGER to save yourself 15% on all their audio products. With them being a sponsor of the podcast, they came in, Matt came down here, helped me rewire my entire system, so everything we're using is Tone Vault products as far as the cables go. Wired up my drum set in the other studio as well, and I couldn't be happier. The quality of these cables is absolutely top-notch. You can compare them to Mogami for a way lower price, and they of course have the same warranty as Mogami as well. So if they stop working, if they get damaged, doesn't matter, call them, they'll take care of you.
Now, you know, it's the fun world of audio, trying to get everything to balance all nice, like,
yeah,
right? Yeah.
Well, and then I got like different shit I do down here.
Yeah.
Right. So it'd be one thing if this was just a podcasting room.
Right.
But dude, I'll fuck around down here, like literally for video gaming, whether I'm streaming online or not. I record drums down here, so I'm constantly fucking with all the levels, and not everything needs to be saved,
yeah.
Or some of them don't have special settings. But that's what's one of the things that's nice about the mixer is I have like the exact mix for recording drums saved, and I can just recall those settings. And same thing with the podcast. So I just go from 1 to 2, 3, 4, whatever. That's nice.
That's nice.
And I'm sure some of these other things do too, but
it's that lovely world of technology. You get to figure out what works and what makes it fall flat on its face.
Yeah,
you
I know, dude. Crazy. At least it's Mac, so all my hardware is designed to work with each other.
Right.
Like that.
You know, people always sit there and they go like, "Oh, it's like Mac snobs, and that kind of thing." And I'm going, you know, there's a reason people are Mac snobs. You know, they just want stuff to work. It's completely okay.
And it's not necessarily, especially nowadays, it's not necessarily better.
Yeah,
Mac isn't.
No.
I still prefer, if I'm doing any major editing or recording, I think it still makes sense to be on a Mac.
Right.
But it's not like it used to be, where it was like recording on PC sucks. You remember that back in the day?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I always thought that was kind of a little bit of a fallacy, though, too, at the same time. You know, it's the whole idea of like, I mean, you have to remember that I grew up on a tape machine. So it's like this whole idea of this old technology, and that whole idea of going, hey, look, it's a tape machine. You're literally doing nothing digital whatsoever. You dump it down to a CD after the fact kind of thing, and that becomes your digital, if you will. And then I sit there and I go, like, when I first started recording digitally, I just bought a really nice, I built a really nice PC and that kind of thing. And it was just fine. I just ended up getting a Mac down the line just because it was easier than building another PC.
I always thought, though, the problem with, like, when we came up, recording on PCs was like, it was an issue with, like, the PC, what I remember specifically was the PCs crashing and shit.
Yeah, it wasn't necessarily always I think the PCs got blamed a lot for the fact that, early versions of Pro Tools and early versions of Logic were just not that great. It's like, I remember like the very first version of Pro Tools I got would be stuck on this line of like, oh, it's bouncing, and it would never move.
Yeah.
And you go, is that the PC or is that the actual program? You never know for sure. So.
Yeah, because I think you're onto something, because I remember recording in high school on a Mac and very similar shit happened. In fact, I remember one time my session got too big.
Yeah. Yep.
So I'm not joking. I literally had to bounce it in mono on just the left side.
Yep.
And then re-record. No. How did I do that? I recorded it, bounced it down to just the left side mono, and then that's what it was. And then we had to pan it back to center on the actual thing we were playing it out.
Yep.
That was a Mac, so
yeah,
I think you're right.
The old tricks of like you're doing drums or whatever, and you only have so many. It's like your computer's not powerful enough, or your program is just not behaving, and you just go, "Hey, let's just take this one track and like bounce down these 4 tracks together and just remix it so it's less tracks, so you don't have to deal with." Ugh, I don't miss those days at all. I do not miss those days at all. Just like, oh, I have this computer that can handle all of this, and I can have 98 tracks running, and it works.
Yeah,
miracles. It's pleasant. Small victories.
I still have issues with fucking Logic freezing.
You have
up.
drinks behind you.
Nice, thanks, babe. I realized I didn't have any drinks down here. I had nothing. You're not a soda guy anymore.
No, I'll drink soda.
I thought you quit drinking soda a long time ago.
I quit drinking beer a while ago. But,
was it?
Yeah. I'll have a soda once in a while. I don't get too nutty with it.
I swear to God, there was somebody. Oh, thanks, love.
Yep.
I swear to God, there was somebody we worked with at GC where I heard they quit drinking soda. That's all they did, and they lost like 20 or 30 pounds.
Oh, I could see that being a thing, because I definitely cut back on drinking soda. That's probably what you're thinking. And just cutting back on soda, I lost a ton of weight.
No, it wasn't that. Because they were telling me about it. I was like, God, you lost a bunch of weight. Dude, you look really good. Like, what did you do?
Yeah.
Like, literally just quit drinking soda. It was somebody we worked with at GC. I thought it was you.
Yeah. Yeah, it wasn't me.
Because I also remember, like, you don't look like you had 20 or 30 pounds to lose.
Yeah.
Because you were never fat.
Yeah.
Whoever this person is I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But you did whoever this person was did look better. And I noticed that they looked better.
Right.
But I was shocked when they were like, yeah, I lost like 20, 30 pounds. I was like, what?
Yeah. It all came out of their face,
Yeah,
so
pretty much.
The chipmunk cheek thing's happening anymore.
Yeah.
I noticed that when I quit drinking, is I'm like going, oh, look at that. My like face isn't like a concentric circle anymore, It's like, oh, it actually has a shape to it. It's weird.
Yeah, I'm going the other direction right now, man.
Yeah.
I'm thickening up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've gained like 20 pounds
in
the last 4 months. Eating heavy protein-based breakfast.
Yeah.
And then pretty much only protein in there. There's a little bit of vegetables. It's basically eggs and meat. Little bit of vegetables, and then I'm doing a light workout every day, and then coming down and playing drums just a little bit, just to make sure, like, pretty much every single day I'm playing my drums for at least a half hour to an hour.
Right.
And then I try to get more time in, but I got so much shit going on, it's hard to.
Yeah. You have to dedicate, man. It's just like anything. It's like an instrument is like I there's been many and many nights that I'm just like sitting in bed ready to go to sleep, and I'm like, shit, and I'm like, my wife looks at me and goes, "Didn't pick up a guitar today, did you?" "Nope. Got to go play for an hour."
That's discipline, man. Where did you learn that from?
Yeah, it's the whole like playing. It's the whole been playing death metal thing forever. Where I'm just like sitting there going, I'm definitely not at the apex of my playing with my current band, but it seems like every single album and everything we do, it's just like, oh, I've got to just keep getting better and keep getting better in order to just maintain what I've done. That kind of thing, right? As far as like my bands and shit, and we're playing enough that I just want to be in top form as much as I can. So literally it's a situation of going, I just need to do this every day, and I'm such in that habit that it's just the norm.
Speaking of, you got a show coming up this weekend, right?
Yeah, we do. Coffin Rights, my death metal band's opening the Skyway Theater for our good pals in Lich King, so thrash metal from the East Coast should be hanging out. They should be pretty fun.
And where can people go to find tickets or info?
They can go to coffinrights.bandcamp.com, hit us up on our Facebook, Instagram, all that good stuff, or you can go to the Skyway Theater's website and buy tickets there as well.
Sick. What is the Skyway Theater's website? Is it just skywaytheater.com? Because there's got to be a million of those in America by themselves.
Just search Skyway.
Greg would know. Greg's in chat.
Yeah.
Shout out to Greg Chilton with Ritual Madness
Mr.
podcast. That's also another music podcast. If you guys are into that, go check out Ritual Madness podcast. But Greg, while you're hanging out, what is Skyway Theater's website? Put the link right in the description, so if people want to get tickets or whatever or info.
I got my buddy Jay
there.
from Oceanic Void hanging out too. They were just in the studio not that long ago. So get me notes so I can get your stuff and you guys can put it up.
Oceanic. That's a cool band name. I like it.
It is. They're gurgly, dirty death metal. It's fun stuff.
Oh, so I wouldn't like the music.
You personally wouldn't like it, but I don't care. It's awesome.
See, that's the thing is like, I'm not afraid to admit I don't like death metal.
And you shouldn't
but
be.
I do respect it.
Yeah.
And I do respect the musicianship of it. Same thing with like country music. Like you'll never catch me like geeking out about country artists and shit. You know what I mean? I don't like country. But dude, I can sit through a country show and like be blown away and walk away like, God, I got fucking work to do.
If you're a musician and you can't go to any music show, regardless of genre, and not take something away from it as a learning tool, then you need to really check where you're at as a musician. You really do.
A great point.
You know, I think it's...
Because I can even do that with pop concerts where there are no instruments being played, where I'm like, man, the lights were fucking dope, dude.
Right.
Like, we need to like have a good light show.
Yeah. It's great. And I mean, it's that's the whole thing is like it and I love that. I actually love that a lot when I used to like, you know, tech for, you know, concerts and everything back in my younger days and everything like that, is I would just go, oh, I'm going to go work for this show or whatever, or, you know, I'm going to go work for this promoter or whatever it was, like some outdoor show, or travel like a half hour to go do this thing or whatever it was. It didn't matter. It's like, it was a country show, rock and roll show, pop concert. It's like, oh no. If you ever have the opportunity to go to a concert and not have to pay for it, just go. You know, just go. It's, if you're a musician, you'll enjoy it. You'll enjoy some aspect of it.
The only way you shouldn't go is if you have a bad back and you hate $12 beers.
That is true. Yeah,
but those are the only. There's a lot of reasons, and those are the only two not to go.
Yeah, the $12 beers are a good deterrent. You know, and anybody who's gonna, you know, if you need to pay $12 for that Budweiser, man, more power to you. You can make it work, I guess.
Yeah, you better be balling out of control or an alcoholic, one of the two, man. But I really did. I quit going to like festivals and major concerts.
Yeah.
Because of that. It's like, dude, I'm sick of standing on concrete. My back is killing me, and I don't want to pay $11 for beer. Like, all jokes aside, that really was. So I'll go to local concerts where I'm paying $8 a beer.
That $4 makes all the difference. But it's the price of admission, really. You know,
it's the price of admission. It's the length of the shows. Like, because I gotta really be into a band.
Yeah.
To listen for a full hour, which is basically most national acts,
right?
And then like a 2 or a 3 hour headlining set. It's like, dude, I gotta be a legit big time fan. There's very few people like that. I'd say Metallica. Elton John was a dope one.
I would love to see Elton John. I've never seen Elton John. I've seen Metallica a handful of times now.
Yeah, Elton John was mind-blowing, especially at the age that he was at.
Yeah. Iron Maiden was like that too. It's like the last time I saw Iron Maiden, I'm going like, these guys are in their 60s and they're making me feel real old right now. You know, just like you guys are at a whole nother level of performers. Then let alone the musicians, right? Just the fact that these guys are top of their game musicians, but they're just top of their game performers. I read an article actually today where Bruce Dickinson, singer of Iron Maiden, was asked when they're going to retire, when they're going to quit, and his direct quote is, "We'll probably die on stage." And I'm just like, yes, please keep going. You know, they're awesome.
Yeah, I mean, when being a musician is your identity like that,
right?
The idea of retiring is hilarious.
Yeah.
Like, it's just not, like, I retired when I quit my job at 19 in a factory and became a musician. That was my retirement. I've been partying this whole time.
I always say to people, it's like you know that you're a musician when you're too dumb to quit. That's always been my takeaways. I'm too dumb to quit, man. I just keep doing it.
Yeah. It's one of those things where it's like, you gotta kind of understand that you're always working and never working at the same time.
Right.
It's kind of like the podcast too, to be perfectly honest. My wife gives me shit about that all the time. She's like, you're never working and you're always working. It's hard.
It's that mental thing it's a mental thing as an artist of any kind. You know, you really can't turn it off. It's your identity. It's not something you do. It's who you are.
Right.
That's the difference. Is going. You can't just wake up one morning. And trust me, I tried in college. I was like, you know what? I'm going to quit being a musician. I think this is just taking too much of my time. And that lasted all of about 6 hours. You know, and I'm like, this is fucking stupid. I'm just going to keep doing this.
So what did that consist of when you were?
It was
to quit for 6 hours.
It was. It sounds so stupid, right? It just sounds so ridiculous. But it's just that whole thought process of, okay, my band broke up, and you're just like, and you're a 19, 20-year-old kid, and you think that like your shot's gone, which is the dumbest thing in the world, right? I'm way more air quotes successful as a musician at my current age than I was in my 20s, right? And I'm sitting here just going, what was going through my head? I'm going, oh, my band just broke up. That was my shot. Now I have to go cut my hair and get a real job or something like that. You know, that thought that runs through your head, and you're just like, why do I do this? I do this because I love it. And it sounds like such a dumb thing to realize at that like age, but that was like the age of going, I stopped caring about what other people thought about my music and started just doing it because I wanted to do it.
Right.
And it's especially like, because I was probably like 20 or 21. I don't remember, but it was college. And I'm just sitting there going, my band broke up, and I'm like, just screw it. I'm going to start a band that I want to do. And that was, at the time, that next band I started was the most successful band that I had done up until that point. And then that band broke up, and then the next band was the most successful band I'd done at that point. Because I learned something every time.
Yeah.
And I learned what to do, and more importantly, I learned what not to do.
Right.
And you know, that whole aspect of lovely things. But that epiphany, if you will, of just going like, I don't really do this for other people. I do this for me, and like finally being able to truly accept that is really freeing. But it was just a dumb thing. My band broke up, so I'm like, oh, I should just stop. And then I'm like, no, this is dumb. I'll start a new band. It's the stupidest little thing. Yeah, it didn't last long.
Yeah, the ego's bruised, the confidence is low.
Yeah,
you're fucking. I mean, the kind of secret blessing of it is like, but we weren't making money back then.
No.
You know, so it was like you didn't lose an income stream. Imagine losing an income stream. Like, you're not in the band anymore, bro, and you're like, fuck.
Yeah, the idea of getting
like, you really have to go get a real job or get into another band immediately.
Right. And I'm pretty fortunate. I know a lot of you know, what they call the real musicians, right? And you see the behind the scenes of everything that they do to keep it going. And the ones who are successful, man, and successful means different things to different people. I mean, successful to me is they keep going, right? It's, you sit there and you watch and you just go, man, the amount of BS that you have put up with and the amount of just garbage you've had to deal with, and you just keep going and you figure it out and you just keep going and you keep getting better. Those are the people that I'm like, yeah, good for you, man.
I think the best version of that was probably be, in my eyes, Dan Copy and Alex Kelly.
The Reaping guys are, and I mean this in all sincerity, that band is the hardest working band I have ever come across.
And even if there is a band that actually works harder,
yeah, I haven't met them yet.
What really sticks out to me is their discipline and their focus.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's not just the work ethic, because that's relative, and you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Because if you stay focused and disciplined enough, you don't actually have to work that hard, because you're not making up for any lost time. You're just kind of on cruise control. You know what I mean? It's the guys that really have to work hard. It's because they're fucking off or getting distracted in other places.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. It's just like that is the, and I've said that to many people, so I have no problem saying it publicly here, is like that band to me is the epitome, if you will, of when I think of hardworking musicians. It's those guys. It's just bonkers to me.
Epitome? Yeah. Epitome?
Yeah, epitome. Sorry.
No, it's fine. Yeah. It's debated whether
how
you say that, and I've heard it both ways. I think it's funny. Whenever I hear epitome, it's like, it sounds more epic.
It sounds bigger. Yeah. Some Lord of the Rings shit.
Epitome.
Yeah, it's probably Oxford English versus Americanized. Whatever one's right. Somebody's got a grammar police.
It's always the Americans that are right. We're always right. Yeah. We won the wars, so we get to decide which version of English is correct.
Filthy traitor. No.
You been keeping up on the Ukraine shit?
I've been keeping up on it as much as I can because it's both necessary to keep up on, and it's also just incredibly depressing to keep up on because it's just you just sit there and you go, what is the right way to handle this? And I just keep going back, and there's this whole idea of you can sit there and you can judge it and go like, well, what could have we done? What could we have done differently? What could have we done differently? And I keep just going back to the fact that, you know what Russia has, and only Russia, like the only thing that Russia has is gasoline and like oil, natural, that kind of thing as a natural resource. And I'm going, if we would have just, done more to, make our engines more efficient, not rely so much on oil and things like that. I'm going.
You're talking about mankind.
I'm talking about mankind in general, and just kind of going.
Yeah, because we as Americans we don't even buy that much from Russia.
No, we don't buy squat, which is what's a joke because all these companies are sitting here going like, oh, it's inflated. This gas prices is being charged by the Russia situation. It's like, no, it's not. It's being charged.
No, that is true. That is true because the price of oil per barrel, it is not set by the local market. It's set by the global market. So it literally is. It's causing the cost of it to go up everywhere equally. The only reason we're not seeing $10 prices like England is because our federal government subsidizes gas prices for us. Otherwise, we'd already be paying $10 a gallon. Think motherfuckers are broke now? That's why Elon Omar drives me nuts, because she's like, we need to stop subsidies to big oil and blah, 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 blah. I'm like, do you know how many millions of lives you would ruin immediately overnight?
Yeah.
But her only focus is virtue signaling, like, oh, we're going to take the money from the billionaires. We shouldn't be. And it's like, you don't even understand how this is such a complex deal. Like, we're doing this because there's millions, and I'm talking like 100, maybe 200 million Americans who could not afford to run their business or make it to work at $10 a gallon. They can barely do it at $4 a gallon where we're at now. So fucking just stop. Just calm your shit down. This isn't Europe where everything is condensed and we're next to each other. And no, dude, there's people that drive 2 hours to work every day. There's guys that live in South Dakota and work in Minnesota and then drive back to South Dakota on the weekends. You know what I mean? Like, it just drives me nuts.
Trucking shortages, the trucking shortage is the big issue. The logistics issues of the world is the big issue right now, right?
So you're talking about like the supply chains?
The supply chains.
See, that's what I don't really know anything about. And I've been blown away by how it's so connected and like almost incestual. So like we were having issues with something to do with computer chips during the pandemic, which snowballed into me not being able to get a new garbage can. Because the machines that they needed to make these garbage cans and the plastics all came from the same place as the chips or some shit. It was all...
The thing that
my mind was blown.
The thing that you learn about any one market, right? If you talk about any segment of any one market, whether it be one raw material or one natural resource or one place that does this very specific thing, right? And the more you actually start to understand the wonderful world economy of things, is you start to really understand how small the world actually is, because we're all so reliant on each other. And that's both amazing and terrifying at the same time.
Yeah.
Because it's just we've created all these differences as humanity, and we all want the same thing, which I think is health and happiness. Ultimately that's what everybody wants, regardless of what border you're across from or what country you live in or what nationality or religion or any of those things you are. It's like everybody wants health and happiness. And that's ultimately what everybody is striving for in their own way. Some people have a real fucked up way of finding health and happiness for sure, but it's, if we could all understand that we have a lot more in common than we do different, the world would be a better place.
I agree. And well said, dude.
Yeah.
I'll give you some props for that one. That was beautiful.
Oh, thanks, fella.
That was gorgeous. That was almost like the wrap-up of a podcast.
Yeah, that was like literally off-the-cuff fucking bullshit, too. How about that?
Dust your shoulders off while you're at... There you go.
I'm not a very philosophical person, but I'm occasionally known to go on a tangent of philosophy, so I apologize.
No, I got you, man. Yeah, I don't have any confidence that, and that's a weird way to say it. I should say it this way. I'm very confident that Ukraine is going to eventually win. I think it's going to be a long and grueling war.
Yeah.
But I know some Ukrainian motherfuckers, and they're tough sons of bitches. The Ukrainians are incredibly, all the Eastern Europeans are incredibly tough, regardless, but especially the Ukrainians. And then we sent them a grip of guns.
Yeah.
Like a grip of guns. Like it's I don't know how much you guys are all following it. Like it's certain, and how we follow it, I guess, is the better example. But I'm following a lot of the military strategists on YouTube and in the news and shit. And some of these guys are breaking shit down. They clearly served a long time in the military, because they'll just glance. They'll see a tank off in the distance and they'll break down what model it is. And they're like, oh, if they're rolling those out, then the Russians are fucked, because that's like a 30-year-old tank that hasn't even been used in a long time. Like it's been 15, 20 years since they've even used those. The fact that they're rolling those out means that they can't produce enough of this model. And then he'll bring that up and show. And then I forget what his fucking name is, but his YouTube channel is incredible, dude. Yeah. He'll sit there. He's got maps of Russia or Ukraine, and it's got like waypoints on it. And then he clicks it and it brings up media. It brings up like news articles. It brings up all kinds of shit. And then he breaks it down for you. And I've never seen anything like it, dude. I've never seen anything like it. It's pretty mind-blowing. But basically, at the end of the day, it's like Russia does not have the ability to take Ukraine. Like, they might fuck around for a while, but it's not going to last long.
Well, the thing is this, and I mean, if you just look at the sheer economic might and people resource that Russia has, if they haven't already done it, it was probably poorly planned, and it's being even more poorly executed. Because if you're sitting here going, what are we on, week 3 or week 4 of the conflict, right? So you sit here and you go, okay, anybody who's a historian will look back to 1944 and think about Germany trying to invade Russia, right? They said they would finish off that country in 8 weeks, and they needed to finish off that country in 8 weeks in order to actually take over, right? And trust me, this is not a pro-German situation 1944 thing here. I'm just saying this is just militarily speaking.
Right.
They had to sit here and go, this had to happen by X date in order for it to be effective. So if you're sitting here and you're going, this tiny country, which Ukraine is actually not that tiny, it's actually a pretty large country, but in comparison to Russia proper, Ukraine is basically like Rhode Island compared to Texas, okay? You know, from a geographical standpoint. As you sit here and you go, this country theoretically should be able to pound anybody into the dirt. They should be able to, but they haven't been able to. Yeah. And why? Because of poor strategy, poor planning, and a country that is very nationalistic. They're a very proud country as far as the people of Ukraine are. So, and it's one of those things where that is their identity, that is their country, and they are gonna fight.
Well, and the whole thing is built on a lie too, right? So like you've got Russian soldiers that are going into Russia legitimately thinking that Ukraine attacked Russia.
Yes.
And then they get there and they're like, what the fuck is going on? These are all women and children. And like
the morale aspect is
exactly.
The morale is going to end the conflict before the actual bombs end the conflict.
Do you think, because I think Putin's dying. I think he's got some sort of terminal illness, and I think he's trying to go out with a bang. He wants his face up there with Stalin and Lenin. That's what I think the whole motivation behind this is.
It's a really interesting theory, actually. I had not considered that. You know, I don't think that Putin is crazy. I don't think he's lost his mind. It's a lot of times when people just go, oh, he's a madman, he's lost his mind, and that whole idea. I really don't think he has. I think he just wants, and I think his end game is what you just described. He wants to be looked at that in that same way because he's an ex-KGB guy. You know, anybody who doesn't know that Putin's an ex-KGB guy, congratulations, you just learned
dude,
it.
because think about it from their perspective, right? Like, pretend you're a full-blown communist, old-school Soviet Union guy, right?
Yeah.
If he restores the former glory of the Soviet Union,
yeah,
he will go down as the greatest thing to ever happen to Russia in your eyes.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? Because you weren't around for Lenin, you weren't around for Stalin, you just seen Gorbachev and the end.
Yeah. You've seen the country
of the actual
fail.
USSR. Yeah, and you've been. So if fucking Putin does this, like, you guys just think he is the cat's pajamas. I mean, he's going to have statues and portraits for hundreds of years.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, it's a real interesting theory. You know, I hadn't considered the he's dying aspect of things. I just considered the fact that he wanted his legacy cemented thing. You know, it's one of those things where it very well could be the case. You know, who knows?
Well, and what makes me think of it like that is because what you said, like, it was so poorly planned and it's being poorly executed, which to me sounds like it was rushed.
Yeah.
Well, why would you rush something? Because you're running out of time.
Yeah.
Well, how could Russia be running out of time? They're not.
Yeah.
Putin's running out of time.
Yeah.
That's what I think, right?
Interesting.
The real question is, when does China take Taiwan? Because I'm surprised they haven't done it already. I'm surprised they didn't do it almost immediately.
They're waiting to see how the world reacts. It's China, you know, China has a lot to lose by going into Taiwan too. It's like, so look at it this way. Russia fails with this Ukraine thing, right? And who's the superpowers that are left? Because the superpowers that exist right now in the political realm are the United States, China, and Russia, right? So they're just biding their time. They're basically trying to find out if Russia and the United States will take care of each other for them, and they could be the world power.
I see what you're saying.
You know, I think that they have planned themselves and cemented themselves in a real specific way. I do think that China's doing what, if the China wants to be a world power, which they are, they're doing it the way that world powers in 2022 are the way that you actually become a world power, and that's economic world power. Because power is all money these days.
Yeah, well, and it kind of always has been, but I know what you mean, and they're definitely doing it by cheating too. They're not doing it on the up and up, which is why everybody has such major issues with them. But it's interesting, the relationship that China and Russia have, like, not just from a communistic standpoint, but from an anti-American standpoint.
It's a complex problem, and as a recording engineer, I'm not sure I have the answers. That's the.
Are you sure?
I'm pretty positive I don't. You know, it's like
I beg to differ, my good friend.
You know, it's unlike everybody else on Facebook. Apparently, I don't know all the answers, and I'm not going to act like I know all the answers.
Yeah, it's amazing how many of my friends are both medical experts and wartime political experts as well.
Oh, dude,
like, it's amazing. It's amazing how so many of my friends on Facebook are actual experts in all of these super complex fields.
I'm always surprised by whatever topic of the week happens to be, how many people I know that actually I had no idea they were experts in that field. It seems like YouTube University has made a lot of people really fucking smart.
That's right.
Somehow.
Didn't you coin that last time you were on the podcast? YouTube University?
I don't know if I coined it, but I've definitely said it 1,000 times. I love how we have all of this technology at our fingertips. We have answers at our fingertips. Literally, we can learn and we can search any possible useless fact that's out there. We can find the answer to just about everything. And now you have to sit down and go, is that answer actually right?
Right.
Because
there's so much shit.
Because we don't know any. There actually is no, and I'm not talking about the like social media fact checking. I'm talking about legitimate fact checking, right? Where you're sitting here and you're going, who do you believe anymore? Right? Yeah. Who do you? And that's not the put on my tinfoil hat conspiracy theorist thing, but I'm sitting here going, there's so much inaccuracy on the internet along with actual accuracy. You have to sit there and really kind of do all your own homework to figure out what's real. And it's crazy to me. And there's so much confirmation bias too. Nobody actually like they just search down. They just search for something to solidify their own opinion versus find information that's actually accurate. It's you believe the Earth is flat, so you find a video on YouTube that you're like, see, this proves the Earth is flat. Just confirmation bias, man. You're not actually trying to learn anything.
There's a lot of that, dude.
Yeah.
There's a lot of that. And same thing, like the flat earthers, when we shut them down, we push them into those echo chambers as well.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Because we insult them, we ridicule them, we make fun of them because they're stupid and they're conspiracy theorists. And same thing with the anti-vaxxers, right? You make fun of these people, you ridicule them, you push them out of everyday conversations, you push them into these fringe groups where they only talk amongst themselves in whispers, and they just reinforce their core beliefs. And that's literally how you end up with extremism, especially when we're talking about like politics and shit like that. But it can even happen with something as silly as the Earth being flat, right?
Yeah.
Totally happens all the fucking time.
There's definitely something that has disappeared in the last, I'm not sure when it started, but I feel like it's in the last like 10 years, right? Where it's just this whole idea of nobody can have a dialogue anymore. Nobody can disagree with each other in an actual tactful way, And
definitely not online.
No, not online. And I mean, don't get me wrong. There are still absolutely rights and wrongs. If you hate anybody because of who they love or the country they're from or the place they grew up or what the color of their skin or anything like that, it's like that shit is wrong. Okay, it is
unless it's hating on Wisconsin, then it's okay.
then it's completely because I'm totally from Wisconsin and I hate it. Okay,
so, it's above board.
Yeah, it's completely okay.
It's super wrong to hate people unless it's your own people.
Yeah, yeah, and growing up in Wisconsin.
Wait a minute. Yeah. No, because that's what Hitler did.
No. The growing up in Wisconsin, right, is like I can sit here as a fact of going like, look, I learned that hating people for all the reasons I just mentioned is why it's wrong because I grew up in all that because it's like this whole it trust me, it's like people talk about the South and how no man there's racism everywhere, brother. It's like it's everywhere. It's more prevalent and it's more loud in certain places than others, but it's everywhere. And
what isn't as big as a problem as people are making it seem like, though, is the white supremacy thing. Like, racism is racism. That's everywhere because anybody can be racist towards anybody for any reason, right?
Right.
But they're acting as if like white supremacy is a legitimate threat to the nation. Dude, did you see the videos of the KKK rallies across the country? There was like 16 people that showed up, dude. Like, that shit's... Kevin said it best. We were hanging out with Muff before the pod. Dude, Kevin said it best. He goes, the KKK is so out of style, bro. Because seriously, it's a joke, man. Racism's a thing, but this whole idea of white supremacy, it's comical. And that's where I was going with this.
White supremacy is real and white supremacy is bad, dude.
But it's not a real threat to the American security. And why I know this to be true is because you can actually go look up, because the FBI keeps numbers on how many people they have on their registrar as KKK members. And it's like 3,500 people across the country, dude. Like, literally, it's a couple thousand. So this idea that like neo-Nazis and the KKK is like an actual threat to American security, it's a joke. And the reason I think that's significant, where I'm going with this, is because that's the same shit Russia is using to justify going into Ukraine. They're saying we're denazifying it. That's one of Putin's big thing is we're getting rid of the Nazis. Well, I did some fucking research on this, dude, because if you look at there
is a strong neo-Nazi.
It's not. There's 3 militia groups with a total of like 1,400 people. They don't hold, because I heard that there's a neo-Nazi party and it's the 3rd largest political party in Ukraine. I was like, wow, that is crazy. And then I looked into it. No, that's all Russian propaganda. That's all made up. There's like 1,400 dudes that are broken up into like 3 different militias. And yes, they are racist, legitimate neo-Nazis.
Yep.
But that's not a third of the fucking country. That's not a reason to invade their sovereignty. It's literally propaganda. So I'm starting to wonder, are we suffering from the same thing? Because we know about the Russian troll farms, we know about the Chinese troll farms, we know about all that. So that's what I'm really thinking, is that the whole white supremacy angle is literally just Russian propaganda to destabilize and create infighting from within. Because again, when we sit here, we can have these conversations.
Right.
We can disagree.
Yep.
We can have a great conversation. We can even have a seriously negative conversation that is very constructive.
Right.
Because it's just uncomfortable, right? But online, you can't.
Yeah.
When you're preaching from a megaphone and you just blast out a YouTube video, no matter how many characters you type, nobody can argue with you because the video is there. You're just typing you're hoping somebody reads your comment.
Yeah.
And then has their mind. You see what I'm getting at?
I'm
wondering if it's the same propaganda.
The algorithm, right? You're working the algorithm rather than solving the problem, right?
Right. And I'm literally wondering if this whole white supremacy shit that we've been hearing about for the last 4, 5, 6 years is just nothing more than Russian propaganda. Because we know they have those Facebook groups. They know they're doing that shit. I'm curious. I'm not saying it is
right. No, and I know that, and that's why we're not yelling at each other, right? Is because we know each other, right? It's the crazy thing is it's if you've actually experienced it, right? And I remember this situation not that long ago. It was before COVID, but I remember there was definitely a group that was trying to kind of infiltrate the music scene, and
like a music group. Or a group of people?
A group of people. One of them happened to be involved in a band at the time, and they were. It was interesting. They definitely were. They were putting on a pretty good. Oh, we're not racist fronts, right? But it was like you start to dig into the group and you go, oh, well, yeah, you are. Yeah, you are. You start.
Can you say it on air?
Yeah, it's Operation Werewolf, dude.
So there's a band called Operation Werewolf?
That wasn't the name of the band. It was an online movement. And it was one of those things where they were trying to kind of try and operate in that whole idea, and they were starting to like kind of show up in our music scene, right? And I'm just going,
no shit.
Oh yeah. So I'm being totally honest. Like growing up around all that, I just kind of started to have my ears perk up and go like, I grew up in a place.
So you're a little more sensitive to it.
I'm not going to, maybe
because I've had some crazy racist shit said to me. Like when I found out I was Jewish and in 8th Black.
Yeah,
my buddy. Yeah, from elementary school.
Yeah.
Told me, don't ever step your N-word Jew foot on my doorstep again, or you'll meet the nasty end of a shotgun. I don't remember how he ended the quote because first part was enough.
Right.
But like that was said to me because I'm mixed. You know what I mean? So I'm also sensitive to that shit, but it sounds like you grew up around like people that were way more open.
Yes. Unfortunately, yes. And it's one of those things where you sit there and you go, and when you're growing up in it, you're not necessarily, you're just like, oh, this is just the way it is because that's how you grew up, right? And it was one of those, it was one of the situations of moving here and meeting people who are different than me, or going to school and meeting people who are different than me, that whole idea, and just kind of going like, again, it goes back to that health and happiness thing. We're all the same. We all want the same thing, right?
Even them.
Yeah.
They just go about it a fucked up way. They think that, and that's what I think is the dumbest thing about racism, like actual racism, is that a lot of people don't just think the other race is inferior, because racism is not exclusive to white people, not even remotely close.
No.
Asians are some of the most racist motherfuckers on the planet, but actual racism comes down to thinking that the other race is inferior. But the problem I have with it is that not only do you think they're inferior, but usually you're blaming them for the shittiness in your own life. Like, that's what the real white supremacists used to do. The real white supremacists used to do this shit, though. They used to be like, the reason our country is going to hell is because of the Jews and the blacks. You used to hear that shit, right?
Yep.
It's like, that's dumb. Like, no, y'all are fucking a bunch of dumbass hicks who didn't graduate fucking high school. That's why your lives suck. It has nothing to do with the Jews in New York, you fuck.
It's still the same way. It's still the fucking stupid trope, right? Where it's like, oh, the Jews in the media, that stupid trope, right? It's like, come on, man. It's like, get over it. All the same dumb arguments are being used over and over and over again by these people who are just grasping for straws, man.
Sometimes they do some crazy shit though, and they use like truth to spread a distorted version of the truth. Like, for example,
it's called framing. It's actually a term in journalism. It's basically like saying the same fact in a different way.
Sure.
So it's like there are facts, right? So you could say 500 people killed in Ukraine, right? That's a fact, okay? So let's use that as an example of this framing thing where you're saying, all right, 500 people killed in bombing in Ukraine. Okay, that's the actual fact. where how you actually say that the 500, where you say, 439 women and children killed by evil Russians is still technically a fact of what, is what's being said in the news, but it's how it's presented. Take away the word evil and say Russians, it has the same effect.
Sure.
Right? So that's an actual term that's an actual term that's used in journalism, and it's one of the reasons that I went to dumb thing here. Sorry, I went to school.
No, you're good.
And I went to school, and I actually took a journalism major just because I needed something for a degree, quite frankly. Because I'm going, I need a degree. I'm a musician. I don't know what the hell I want to do. So it's I'm going. My dad's I just finished the degree. Nobody cares what it's about anyway. So he goes, go into business or get a communications degree. It'll work everywhere. And I'm like, oh, that's good advice because I really don't care. It was literally the whole thing with school of I'm just going there to finish, like so many people do with college. And so I'm just oh, okay, I want to do communications because it sounds more fun than doing business. And I'm going, journalism sounds interesting. I had a minor in political science, so I just kind of found that interesting. So I said, okay, cool. And what made me say immediately with taking journalism classes and going through that whole major and getting that major was everything I learned about journalism in college made me not want to actually pursue journalism. Because I'm just going, if it bleeds, it leads. I'm going, this doesn't sound like a type of field that I want to live in.
Right.
It's those kind of things where you sit there and you go, oh, you can absolutely still present a fact, but you can help people think a certain way is a nice way of saying, hey, you can change people's minds by how you frame an actual topic. I'm going, that's not what journalism is or what journalism should be. And I'm not trying to say I'm on this moral high horse or anything, but I just kind of went, well, this is not a field that I want to be in.
Here's a great example of this framing thing, right?
Right.
And technically it's true. And I'm saying this as a Jew, so don't fucking, especially you guys out there, chill the fuck out, calm down, bro. So the Jews control the media and Jews control the banks. Okay, well, first of all, that is technically true, but it is not some worldwide conspiracy that Jews set out to do. It was a byproduct of literal racism and us being relegated to certain occupations. So in fascist Europe, and going all the way back to Egypt, Jews were the only ones allowed to handle money because there's weird shit going on culturally. So they were forced into situations like banking, right? And then same thing, even when they came over to America, like if we just speed run this bitch and come to modern times, Jews were never like the craziest alpha, big, giant human beings. Yeah, I mean, you get athletic Jew people in all kinds of sports, right? Like you see Jewish people in basketball and baseball still to this day. It's just not as common as like a fucking German dude or a black dude or whatever, right? So just naturally over the course of hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years, they gravitated towards what they were capable and able to do. And it ended up in 3 distinct industries, right? You got banking, you've got the media, right? Writing is a big one, and that's where it started from, because a lot of Jewish people were great writers and directors and actors and blah, 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 playwrights, so on and so forth. And then the third one ended up being, oh my God, I can't believe I'm drawing a blank. I just had it on the tip of my tongue. It's banking, and then like physics and engineering and shit. Like the vast majority of Nobel Peace Prize winners are European Jews.
Yeah.
So there's just this weird thing. But so those conspiracies are technically true. That, yeah, the Jews do control the media and the banks and blah, 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 blah. But it wasn't by some grand design. It was just a byproduct of how they were treated over thousands of years across the globe. You see what I'm saying? But then they'll use that fact and they'll frame it in a way that spreads misinformation and even disinformation if they're using it.
It becomes the trope at that point. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of people...
I actually did not know that.
Yeah, and a lot of people don't. A lot of people just dismiss it as a conspiracy, and it's like, no, we do, but we were kind of forced into those roles. It's not like we wanted to do that, you know? It's just, fuck, dude. Yeah, there used to be Jewish boxers. There used to be all kinds of shit, dude. Like I've read, there's entire books like they have at churches, like synagogues and shit. There's entire books for children about like Jews in sports, famous Jewish athletes. You know how we have like Black History Month and shit like that? Well, the Jews protect their own culture just like that. There's entire books about this shit that only Jews know about because the only way you can get them is at a synagogue. It's bizarre, but it's real. It's 100% real. But to go back to your point, it's that framing thing where they use it as some fucking... They're controlling the media. They're brainwashing all the young, innocent white Americans. It's like, fuck off, dude.
Yeah, it's like all you really have to do to like look at like anybody in the white supremacist movement that that's trying to legitimize himself. It's like, why does that guy always like for some reason look like he had his head smashed between a blender and is like, got one eye like looking over here at at this person and this person, and they're going like, oh yeah, we're totally a superior rate. What?
Yeah, fucking inbred fucks.
I'm going like, so is your mama also your aunt, or you're also your grandmother, and then also your sister somehow?
Speaking of dunkles,
yeah,
have you heard of Uncle Daddy, the local band?
Yeah,
they're fucking awesome.
That
have you
band
seen
is
them live?
hilarious. Yeah, that band is awesome.
They're
yeah.
great.
Thanks. Let's go to some music. Let's talk about
that whole. And not only are they dope, but the whole band is dope. Like at each instrument and as a unit, like on stage, in the studio. Like, I think Uncle Daddy is one of the best bands in town.
Uncle Daddy is a fantastic band, and I really, especially like being a dude who's in the metal scene and everything like that, is like, it's just really nice to just hear some good rock and roll music. It's that whole idea of just fucking play guitar for the sake of playing guitar, writing songs about dumb shit. It's just, and I realize the world is a dark place and the world is like full of shit that needs to get fixed. But sometimes it's just nice to hear a song about having sex, man.
Well, it's 100% true, dude, because here's the thing. The world has always been a dark place, and it's always been worse than it is today. Like, that's the craziest thing that most of us need to remind ourselves of. But not everyone's read those books, and not everybody knows about this. But every day, the world literally gets better. Like, maybe it's not as easy to understand that way, but year by year, decade by decade, every measurable metric, every statistic, whether it's, I think the only one that has anything that'll fuck with your brain is the slavery thing. So there's more people in slavery right now than ever in human history. However, it's at the smallest percentage of the human population is in slavery. Right. Does that make sense?
Yep.
That's the only
we also
one.
have the largest population we've ever had.
Exactly. That's what I mean.
It's the population growth argument.
But even with the population growth, there's still less people in poverty than ever. Even with the population growth, there's less people starving and malnourished than ever. That's what's crazy, is the only thing that where the percentage is different than the actual total is the slavery one. But every other metric, it's better than it ever has been. But we keep panicking and thinking that everything's about to end. And it's like, dude, how do you think they felt in 1830 when all the same shit was going down now as far as crazy wars and disease and all that shit, right? Plus famine and all these things. But they didn't have any technology to help them out. They didn't have the ability to go distract themselves by listening to rock and roll music about fucking or playing video games or go jamming on their drums or playing guitar. They just had to sit on their fucking farm and wait for tomorrow to come. Think about that. You know what I mean? Like, that's what I think about, dude. Like, we got shit easy, dude. And that's what I'm trying to remind myself now every time I get bummed out or depressed or think I have a hard life.
Yeah.
I always joke with my wife that I have a hard life, but I know I don't.
Yeah.
Easy lives.
It's the world is certainly a dark place, and the world can still get better. And I think that's what strives everybody to continue to care. It's if you don't care about leaving a better world than you started in, then you're kind of a shitbag human being, and that's kind of the world that I live in, and that whole idea of going, what can I do to make something better for what can I do to help make the world better tomorrow that I couldn't do today, and sometimes it's just attitude and just not being a dick.
Yeah.
And that goes a really long way. It's crazy to me, the amount of, and I realize there's like sadomasochists out there and that kind of thing, and people who get off on other people's suffering, but I'm just not that guy.
Right.
It's one thing to screw with your friends and that kind of thing, and like kind of do that and kind of mess with each other. That's completely normal and kind of fun. But sitting there and going like just outright being a dick for the sake of being a dick holds no value whatsoever.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. And I used to kind of be that guy. For real. Like I was kind of a dick just for the sake of being a dick. Like I almost prided myself on being brutally honest and now it's like, yeah, I can be brutally honest, but with tact, yeah. With manners. And I'm still working on it, but I definitely come a long way. The thing that stands out to me though, and what you said is I don't think everybody has that mindset of like trying to leave the world a better place or trying to be a better person.
A lot of people don't.
No, I think a lot of people are just trying to survive. Right, because life is fucking hard for a lot of people still to this day.
Absolutely.
And then a lot of other motherfuckers just don't care.
Yeah.
And they're like, I don't give a fuck about any of these motherfuckers. And then what about the sadists are one thing, right? Like you said, they get off on other people's suffering, the Schadenfreude. But what about the masochists that get off on their own suffering? Like, because we know about this, right? People like getting punished sexually.
Yeah.
We know about the gambler addiction now as a masochistic thing. They actually get off on the losing. That's why gamblers become addicts. What if there's like masochists for life? You know what I mean? Like they actually find some sort of sick gratification and pleasure by just being a loser and complaining.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I've never thought about that until we just started talking about this now. If you have negative energy, you're going to invite negative energy. You know, it's that whole idea of if you're in a negative mindset all the time, you're going to not help but be in negative situations. You know, again, it's that stupid philosophy thing of going, and I'm not saying be a unrealistic optimist where you're just going, everything's going to get better, because everything's not going to get better if you don't make the effort to make it better. You know, that's the whole idea. So if everything comes back to making the effort of going, hey, if you're in a shit place, you need to do something to get out of that shit place. It doesn't mean that it's easy. It doesn't mean that it's going to be quick. It doesn't mean it's going to be overnight. And quite frankly, it's probably going to suck for a little while. But if you sit there and wallow in your self-grief, that's not going to do anything but keep you there. I agree with that so much, dude. And then, like, to take it a step further, don't focus on the actual goal, right? So, like, okay, you got a shitty situation. I'll just use myself, for example, right? I'm frustrated with X, Y, or Z, okay? Well, the one thing I can actually do to make everything better is get this goddamn album done. Like, I have to get my album done. So I have to take everything into personal accountability and start doing that. However, if through this process, the only thing I'm focused on is the actual album being done, I'll never find the solace or the happiness in that process. And through that process, I won't observe or appreciate the changes that I'm going through. Because the real point is when you're focusing on the process, you're focused on the journey, it's understanding that regardless of whether you hit this outcome or not, the real accomplishment is the person you've become along the way. And that shit's deep. It took me a long time to really understand that. Like literally, I think it was like this summer. Yeah. It finally clicked when people say that it's not about the destination, it's about the ride. They're not talking about what most of us think they are. Is what they're talking about is the person. And here's where it really comes down to make it a shorter, easier point to understand is my buddy Anwar's talking about benching 400 pounds. He goes, the point is not actually to bench 400 pounds. It's the fact that you went from benching 125 to 395. That's what's impressive. It's not the fact that you bench 300 or 400. It's the fact that you only used to be able to bench ...
Yeah.
And you didn't know you were capable of all of these steps along the way. So even if you max out at 390, that last 10 pounds is literally irrelevant.
Yeah. Because
you have done so much to get here that this means 10 times more than that last 10 pounds will ever mean.
Right.
That's what the point.
Yeah, totally. It's like that whole idea of, that applies a lot to recording too, is like people just go, oh, it must be just amazing every time you finish a record and you can go back and listen to it and you're just like, oh, it must be great to go back and like listen to an album that you've done. And being completely honest, I typically, after I finish working on a record, I'll usually listen to it once, maybe 3-4 weeks after I finish it and just kind of go like, oh, that's kind of cool. And then I won't listen to it again probably for another 4 or 5 years. And And it's not because I don't want to listen to it, I don't care. It's literally just I create and consume so much music throughout that time where I'm helping.
So it's
people.
not intentional?
No, it's not intentional. So I'm not trying to ignore it. But I think the best part about making the record is the actual process and doing it and creating those memories. So when I go back and I listen to that record after I haven't listened to it in forever, that moment comes right back. And all of those little moments of creating that record are what becomes that happiness for me.
Really?
Where I can just sit there and I go, I haven't listened to this in this long, and then I'll be listening to a track and I'll remember a solo will play or something like that, and I'll go, oh man, I remember when David was struggling with playing that solo and we were on take like 20 and he was super pissed and I just helped him like get through. We went outside and you just had a quick conversation and we just talked about our lives for 10 minutes or whatever it was.
So
right?
for you, it's more about the relationship and the human interactions and the accomplishments in that respect.
Oh, very
not
much so.
Just the actual audio that's on the record.
Very much so. It's that creating.
It's the same journey.
Yeah. It's creating that moment. And the funny thing is I don't necessarily get that enjoyment until months, years later, which is just crazy because of all the music I create and I consume. Because I just listen to music all day long, every day. All I do at work is listen to music while I'm working on stuff. Got headphones on.
You never get burnt out where you're just like, I don't want to listen to any fucking music.
No, I just love it. And it's because my musical taste varies so much that I'm like going, today I'll listen to some Mozart and tomorrow I'll listen to, some Behemoth or whatever band. It's something that's just so drastically different. Whatever it just happens to be. It's like,
that's super interesting because I was talking to Glidden, Kyle Glidden.
Mm-hmm.
I was talking to him, and I are like almost the same person. It's kind of scary, to be perfectly honest. Except for
I could see that actually.
He's wildly more successful than me, but at least he's more successful than me in like a regular daily life business. He's got the drywall company and all that shit. But him and I are almost identical, especially in this respect. We play so much music and listen to so much music that like when we're in the car, we do not want to hear music.
Yeah.
Like we listen to sports talk radio because we need like our brain to rest.
Yeah.
It's almost like overstimulation at some point in time. So we just like, it's almost like a short circuit. We like fucking, we're like, dude, I'm done. Like fucking, I need to listen to these idiots talk about sports. I don't know, it's weird.
The funny thing about
but you don't get burnt out on music, you just maybe get burnt out on a sound or whatever, so you'll just switch your shit up the next day to kind of prevent you from getting burnt.
I'll go from there. And it's when I always love when I'm so we're driving home from like a metal show or something, like, and it's regardless if it's one band or the other, because it's both bands are at the end of the day, even though they're very different, both bands at the end of the day are both metal bands, right? So my rule has been, and anybody who's ever been in a car with me where I'm driving after a show, is I'm like, after the metal show, there's no metal in my car. It's the funniest thing because I'll literally, when I'm getting ready to go for the day, I'll go, all right, I got a 3-hour drive to Fargo. Okay, I'm going to grab this, and this. And then I grab 3 hours worth of music that is not metal for the way home.
What about the way there?
The way there, I'll just listen to whatever my mood strikes. So It could be punk rock, could be rock and roll. I mean, might be Uncle Daddy, whatever it is, right? It's like I'll listen to some rock and roll, listen to some blues, I'll listen to some death metal. It doesn't matter, It's on the way there. I don't care because it's like it's just that whole idea of like, oh, I'm getting amped up. I'm hanging out with my friends, right? Half the fun of being in a band is being in a car with a bunch of your friends for hours.
Yeah.
It's not even. It's the 40 minutes on stage is great, but it's the memories you create is what really matters to me from music.
Dude,
right?
My best version of that was, and I think you were actually at this show. It was Solace and Ashes 6. I think you guys were playing in your old group.
Was it And Hope to Die probably at that time?
Yep. Star Central.
Yep.
And we're backstage in the green room because they had a pretty nice sized green room. Remember that?
Yep.
So sometimes there'd be 17 dudes in there because basically all the bands could fit in this room and hang out together. It was kind of cool.
Yeah.
And my cell phone rang, and this was back in like the flip phone days. So it was like 8-bit music, but it was Sweet Child of Mine. And I let the intro play all the way through, and it basically where the verse would have started, it went back on a loop.
Yeah.
But I flipped open my phone, and literally someone in the room sang the first line of the verse, and then somebody came behind him and sang the second line, and then literally the whole room is singing the chorus of Sweet Child of Mine. And it was something straight out of a movie.
Yeah.
It was like one of those movie moments where it was like, this actually happened organically. And
I
I'll
remember
never
that
forget
now that you
moment.
said that, because it's like I forgot about that until right now.
Wild, huh?
Yeah.
And now you'll probably never
I'll
forget
never
it.
forget it now, you know. That's
the exact perfect example of what you're talking about. It's these weird bro moments that you can't recreate. You can't get that anywhere else because it only happens. And because the other thing is all of our bands were really tight with each other. I think you guys were the outsiders because you were still technically from Wisconsin. But Six and Solace rehearsed next door to each other, so we'd get fucked up all the time and party with those guys.
Yeah, I remember because we ended up eventually like renting a space there. Just because when I would travel from Wisconsin, when I would travel over here for practice, when I'd still drive up every weekend, and we'd still we'd still practice there and everything, and we'd still party. We'd be like, oh, what's going on Saturday night after our rehearsal? We go to some show, and then we just, get drunk in the 6 room. So
I got 2 questions for you I want to ask before I forget.
Yeah.
And I'm going to try to go in reverse to kind of wind our way back to what we were talking about earlier. Number 1, so we were talking about the music you listen to on the way and from your own concerts.
Yep.
My wife has this thing where she hates it when people listen to the band they're going to see on the way there.
Interesting.
Are you like that?
No.
Because I'm the exact opposite. I'm like, that's what you do. Like, I want to get in the mood to go see Metallica or Coheed or Protest the Hero or Misery Signals, right?
Right.
So I'm going to listen to some of that stuff on the way there. And usually is what I'm going to try to do is listen to the music I'm pretty sure they're not going to play.
Yeah.
You see what I'm getting at? Like, I kind of got an idea what Metallica's usually going to do for their set list.
Yeah.
So I'm going to listen to a lot of the songs that they're not going to play. So if I throw in Kill 'Em All, I'm skipping Seek and Destroy.
Sure. Because they're going to play it. Yeah.
Right. What do you do on your way? Or because some guys are like, listen, I'm going to a hip hop show. I want to listen to hip hop on the way there to get me into that mood. That's the type of person I would be, right?
Sure.
Like, if you're not going to let me listen to that band, then let's listen to that genre of music.
Sure. It's crazy because I don't really think about it. I'm never like making a playlist in my head of what I'm going to listen to at any point. It's I try and let my mood kind of determine that. So, because I'm a CD guy, man. Like, I've been collecting CDs since I was 9 years old, and I'm never going to stop. And I'm not a streaming guy because I'm also an audio guy because there's no low end in MP3s, and it drives me nuts as an audio guy. So I just can't do streaming. It just drives me insane. It's one of my dumb quirks, and everybody laughs at me because I'll show up to a trip with like a stack of CDs and not give a shit, right? So I'll literally grab like way more music than I'll ever need, and I'll just go, okay, cool. What do I feel like listening to? And I'll just go through, I'll grab 2 or 3, and I go, oh, that sounds cool. And I'll just literally put that in. And that's what I'll listen to. It's not like I'm sitting there going, I'm going to go watch, but what I do after I see a band, like the next day, it's like I feel like I'm on that kick for like a week. Right, like, so Plague of Stars just played with the Birthday Massacre, and I'm just like, okay, I've been on this Birthday Massacre kick for like the last like 2 weeks of going, oh, I want to listen to that album again. I want to listen to that album again. But like when I'm going to a show, I'm not really thinking about that. Or if I'm going on a road trip, I'm not really thinking about that. I just grab a bunch of stuff and just go, this is what sounds cool to me right now. I don't know.
Super interesting. The reason this is something I've even thought about at all, is 2 things. I remember playing a Dying Euphoria show. Don't remember where we were. But it was in the middle of the nowhere. And
there's a lot of those around here.
And the first couple bands were already on stage, right? Like the opening band was already done. Second band was on or something like that. I think we were headlining this show somehow. I don't know why. We shouldn't have been, but you know how that works.
Yep.
It's like, y'all couldn't afford a real headliner, huh?
Yeah.
Sure, I guess we'll play last if you want to call that headlining. But
it's
anyways,
closing.
That's exactly what it really is. But we're standing in the parking lot, and some dude comes rolling through the parking lot playing our CD.
Yeah.
And like we see him coming through the parking lot, and he's like screaming my lyrics and shit. And Jeremy and I look at each other and we're like, what the fuck? Like, are we making it? Like, is this working? Like we've never experienced that before. We're like, what the fuck's happening? And then we go in to play, and the room is packed all of a sudden. Like, whoever booked us for this show had been pushing our music in this town for a while.
Yeah.
Like months. We had no idea that we were going to play a good show. Like, we accepted the show because we got guaranteed money.
Yep.
We knew there was going to be some people there. But when we showed up, seemed like it was going to be your prototypical shit show of a metal concert.
Yep.
And boy, were we fucking wrong. Have you ever experienced anything like that where dudes are listening to your music?
Yes.
Because the reason I'm asking this is because I found out through that, and then through dating my wife, that's a thing that regular people do, is they have a whole ritual going to the concert.
Yep.
It's like when I do a football game, you know, like we pregame. We used to get drunk at the house and then go, so we're already shit-faced. Now other people, you just fucking, you tailgate, right?
Yeah.
I found out most people do concerts like that. And so, yeah, my wife had gone to enough concerts with non-musicians where listening to the band's music on the way there was what you did.
Yeah.
So much to the point where my wife hates it.
So here's what you should do, all right? What I think you should do, because I need to take a quick break to go use the restroom.
Yeah, let's play a song.
Let's play a song, because I actually have a good Plague of Stars story. So let's go ahead and do that. So if you want to do the Plague song or the Coffin song, let's do that.
I think we got to do the Plague one because the Coffin one wasn't working.
All right, fair enough.
We can try that one later. Maybe
Sure.
it refreshed or something. I don't know.
Technology. So yeah, we'll tell that story after this break.
Sick. Is it going to work? Very operatic.
Yeah, good
She's
old
got
Melissa.
that fucking... Aceman David was a cool band, dude. I was just thinking about them the other day.
They were, you know, the saddest. Well, I shouldn't say the saddest. There's a lot of things that are worse than this. One of the saddest things for me was when the pandemic hit, we were actually everybody was talking about doing an Ace Medeva reunion, doing a couple shows, and obviously Earl was gone. So they were going, well, how do we do this without Earl, kind of thing. And Melissa was like, I really think Will should do it, and I was going to be there. I was going to fill in for Earl, if you will, and I considered that to be a great honor to even be asked to do that.
Hell yeah, dude! Earl Root is a literal legend.
Yeah, so it was like, it was a situation of like, they're going like, you would totally respect his legacy and that kind of thing. It's like, you're not going to be like, I'm in the band now. It's literally just like, we're doing reunion shows and we need somebody to play Earl's parts, and that's going to be your job. And you kind of look like Earl anyway, so I guess it kind of works out. But
little bit.
I have to chop it up a lot.
You're not
more.
nearly as tall as he is.
No, Earl was much taller than I am.
He's a giant.
Yeah. I'm a tiny 5'10" on my best day. So,
God, you know who I miss from the old school music scene days is fucking Roadie Ron.
Oh, dude, that's a name I haven't heard in a long time.
I was like one of the only people that liked him. Like, I genuinely liked him and got along with him, and people hated him. And part of me just felt bad for him, to be honest.
I always thought he was a friendly dude. I'm not sure if he wasn't all there in that sense, but he always seemed cool to me, man. He was always super friendly and loved music for the sake of music. How can you not like that,
I think people hated on him because he wore sweatpants all the time, like in public. Like at work and shit. He'd be in fucking sweatpants. I feel like if you wear sweatpants in public and you're a big guy.
Yeah.
Like if you're like fit, you can get away with that,
Yeah.
Seriously, like, because people just assume you were working out or something. But if you're like a hefty guy and you wear sweatpants in public, I feel like you're just automatically disliked by a certain percentage of people.
There's a joke in Coffin Rights that when COVID was over, there was a joke that one of the first shows that we went to, one of the singers was wearing sweatpants on stage, and he goes, "We waited 2 years and people are still wearing sweatpants on stage." It was like this joke of like, dude, don't be that guy, man. It's like,
you know what mine are? For exactly weird.
Yeah.
Backwards hats.
Yeah.
And shorts.
Yeah.
Don't fucking be that guy.
Yeah.
Don't wear a backwards hat on stage, and don't wear fucking shorts on stage. It looks horrible. Put some fucking effort into something.
Right.
Like, get some cool looking pants. Doesn't have to be jeans. Just get some cool looking fucking pants. Because basically whatever your footwear is makes you look like an asshole with shorts. You know what I mean? Like on stage. You see what I'm getting at here? Like, you got running shoes on and you're wearing shorts. Like, did you just drop your kids off at soccer practice on your way to the show? Like, and same thing with the backwards hat. It's like, dude, what the fuck, man?
Yeah.
Like, do your fucking hair.
Yeah.
Like, oh, you're bald? Okay, then shave it. Look like Carrie King. But dude, when you wear a fucking hat, bro, backwards, come on, man.
It feels very local bandish.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm getting at. Is you look like an amateur. Like, you don't look like you're taking this seriously, and it's just it ruins the vibe. And I don't
We're
think
judgmental pricks anyway.
Well, I don't think most people notice this though.
Yeah.
That's the real. They notice it. They just can't verbalize it. They're like, God, I can't believe he wore shorts and a hat. But they'll subconsciously be like, that dude looks like a dork. Seriously. Sure. And then the next band goes up and they got, and I'm not advocating eyeliner, but that's what happens is the next band goes up. They got eyeliner on. They look all badass and shit. Yeah. They're all wearing black and fucking chains.
They've got
shit.
The uniform. Yep.
Yeah, whatever. Yep. Yeah, whatever it is. But yeah, that's a big one for me. So, okay. So let's tell this story about hearing somebody play your music.
So the very first Plague of Stars show. So we were in the very first Plague of Stars show, this goes back many, many moons. But we were playing in Chicago, right? First show, never even played a single show, and we're playing in Chicago for this female fronted like metal fest or whatever, right? And we're sitting there and we're like, oh, okay, this is cool. We've put out a 3-song demo. We don't even have an album done. Like, literally just brand new fucking band, first fucking show, right? We show up there because Melissa used to be in Age Medeva and used to be in Visions of Atlantis and some other, well-known bands, Echo Terra and things like that. That we get there and there are people there that are super excited to meet us in Chicago, not our hometown. They're super excited to meet us. They've already learned all the words to our 3 songs that are only the 3 songs that we have out, and they're just sitting there like fawning over Melissa, just fawning over her. Like, oh my God, you're so good. It's like your music has touched me in so many different ways and that whole thing. And I'm just sitting here going like, this is great because I'm used to the death metal scene where all people want to do is talk about my gear and talk about like the different guitar playing techniques I have. And nobody gives a shit about me. And this is awesome. It is such a nice change, and it was great. And it's still to this day. It's like if Melissa listens to this, she'll be like, "Ah, God damn it, Will's telling this story," Or it's just like it's the greatest thing about being in Plague of Stars is nobody gives a shit about me. It's awesome. It's the great. it's like the best.
It's so weird to hear a guitar player say these things.
Yeah, it's like I don't. It's crazy because it's like the death metal world is so different, and I'm not saying that I don't want people to talk to me. I love the human interaction. I love all that shit. I really do. It's like sitting down and having genuine moments with people is my favorite thing about playing music, as we've already kind of covered. But it's one of those things where I just sit there and I go, it's just so different compared to what I had done previously, where it's just gearheads, other musicians, that kind of thing. But these women and some dudes like just automatically like fell in love with our band. Like everything we put out a new shirt, they're the first ones to buy it online. We put out a new single or whatever, they're the first ones to download it.
That's amazing.
And it's just, and they still are just, they just love the band. And that's so awesome. And they're not from our hometown. In fact, I remember one of the women actually that came to the show, she said that she drove from like Missouri or something like that to come to that show. And I'm sitting here going like, what's that, like a 10-hour drive or something ridiculous? And she corrected me and she's like, it's like a 13-hour drive, or I don't remember what the number was, but it's like she corrected me and it was more, I just couldn't believe it. It was just one of those goofy things where I'm just sitting there going like, did we make it already? We haven't even done shit.
Like, are we making it?
Or is this real? Right. And it's always
the answer's no.
No, we're not. Absolutely not. We definitely still have a lot of work to do, and we're going to continue to do so.
But it's crazy how you kind of like question it for a second. You're like, what is happening right now?
It's just bonkers, right? And I've definitely been at I've definitely like played some shows. Like we played some We Are Legion shows, and we'd hear people like pull into the parking lot playing our CD and stuff like that. It's just weird. It never doesn't feel weird. It feels cool because that like people do buy your music and do appreciate your music, and that's awesome. But then after they buy your music, you never equate the fact that they ever listen to it again. You just assume it's garbage and they turn it into a coaster. It's like, oh, they bought our CD so they could give us $10 and then they use it as a coaster at home. No big deal. And then like you go, these people actually are listening to our music. It's cool. You know? So in its own really small way, but that was it's like that very first Plague of Stars show. It just was the craziest thing to me. It's just like you literally drove this long to see this singer play in this brand new band who hasn't done anything. We haven't even put out our first album yet.
Do you only do metal, or do you make music that's not death metal or brutal metal?
Do you mean personally or recording?
Yeah. Both, really.
Both. Okay, so recording, absolutely not. I'll record anything with a guitar in it. I mean that with all sincerity. It's like I'll record hip hop if it's a band, and I don't mean anything against hip hop, but as an engineer, I mean this in all sincerity. If you give me a track and you're just gonna rap over it, it's the most boring thing to do as an engineer. It's the easiest money in the world, but I don't ever want to do music strictly for the paycheck. I made that decision years ago, and thankfully I've been able to keep to it. So that's the reason that I don't do hip hop, is it's just not interesting to me as an engineer. I appreciate hip hop music. I enjoy hip hop music. I just don't enjoy recording it. But if it's a hip hop band, i.e. there's, an actual, guitar, bass, drums, that kind of thing, absolutely all day long. Love to record it. It's a blast. In fact, this year has been really interesting in the fact that usually by this time I've done about 80% death metal and 20% everything else. Is this year I haven't done a single death metal project yet, and I don't have one. Or that's not true. I did the Oceanic Void. That's a death metal. So that's a death metal project for sure.
Oh, it's Oceanic Void?
Oceanic Void is the name of the band.
I thought it was just Oceanic.
Nope, Oceanic Void is the name of the band. But as far as like straight up death metal, that's the only death metal project that I've done this year. Everything else has been rock and roll, punk rock, heavy rock, that kind of thing. So it's actually been kind of a nice change of pace, because I always say, look, death metal's my bread and butter. It always will be. And trust me, I got a lot of those through the rest of the year. I'll have plenty to get done. But as far as recording goes, anything with a guitar, I'll touch it. Absolutely. If it's people that I genuinely enjoy hanging out with, people that are passionate about their music, absolutely. I'll love to do it. Personally, I would love to do more outside of the metal world, but to be totally honest, everything that I end up touching somehow becomes metal just because that's the music that just speaks to me.
Huh.
You know, it's always, if I play punk rock, it kind of becomes kind of a proto thrash type punk rock band. You know, if I do, you know, a rock and roll band, it ends up being kind of a hard rock band, you know, might have bordering on metal moments, that kind of thing. But the only band that I've ever been in that's not a metal band, you know, that actually did anything, was I was in a rock band all through my college years called Hawthorne Guild. We actually did 3 albums. I was the drummer in that band.
No shit.
But
are you a good drummer?
I mean, I'd like to think so for a guy who never took a lesson in his life, you know. I've been asked to play on a couple projects, so I guess other people think I'm okay, if nothing else, I suppose. But I kind of know my limits as a drummer, where I go, you know, you ask me to play brutal death metal, I'm not good enough to do that. You ask me to play thrash metal, yep, that's about where I'm at as a drummer, if on the heavy stuff.
Yeah.
But you know, I absolutely loved that project, and it never really went anywhere because we always referred to ourselves as a drinking band with a rock problem, was kind of our joke.
That's awesome.
You know, and in college we were, every Tuesday night we get a 30 pack of booze. One of us would buy it, and practice was over when the 30 cans of beer were gone. That was the band.
I mean, shit though.
And,
here's the problem: you got 5 guys in the band. That don't take very long.
Well, we had 4 guys in the band, and all of us, you know.
Okay, it's a little bit longer.
But it took us a little bit longer. But we'd play rock and roll, and we'd play kind of locally. We'd play some shows and travel a little bit, that kind of thing. Nothing super crazy. Never really was super serious, other than the fact that we just seriously loved it and it was fun. And you know, and then we did our second record, and then we, you know, broke up for an inordinate amount of time, didn't really do anything, and then we just decided to get back together and do our third record just for fun. And we did our third record. I think we played 1 show, and we knew that was gonna be it. But we had no intention of doing anything other than making music for the sake of making music for us. But I loved that band, and I still love that band. And Nate, the guitar player, lives here in the cities, and Chris, the bass player, lives in Colorado now, and Matt, the singer, lives in Rochester. So theoretically, we could restart the band with a new bass player, and all 3 of us are just like, no, that band was the 4 of us, and it will always be the 4 of us. We're never going to do it again unless it's the 4 of us.
Interesting.
So it's just it's that kind of thing. So
that's dope, though.
Yeah. I'll have to actually give you that music, because I have all those CDs, and I still have quite a few of them left, because, you know, we never really played a ton of shows. But it's quite a bit different than anything else I've ever done. It's like the Who, Pearl Jam style rock and roll, to be honest with you.
I think, honestly, man, I think Minnesota and Minneapolis specifically, I mean, I understand St. Paul's there, but you know what I'm getting at.
Yep. Yes, I do.
I think we would benefit greatly from having more really good rock bands, because we're such a metal and hip-hop town.
Yeah.
I don't think that's... I mean, the hip-hop is obviously good for commercial viability, but just being hip-hop and metal, I don't think it's good for our town. Like, we need more great rock bands. We need more country acts, which you'd be surprised how fucking popular country is here.
I'm actually not surprised by that at all. Country is huge everywhere. Country is the second highest selling music behind metal as far as physical media is concerned. So
really?
It's like, so the major labels are basically surviving because of country music.
That's fucking crazy.
Yep.
So what is the least then? Is it like fucking...
It's pop music.
Pop?
As far as physical media is concerned.
So they're just streaming?
Yeah, they're just streaming.
So pop is focused on...
singles, videos, streaming, that kind of thing. Yeah. You sit there and you go, it's if you do actually like some pop artists, which I actually do like. I really like Billie Eilish, and I have no problem admitting that in public. You know,
I don't understand why people hate on her. She's great.
She's awesome.
She's really good. Like,
she's actually playing in Minneapolis tonight.
If you're good, you're good.
Yeah.
And most musicians can acknowledge that.
Yeah.
But there's this other group of musicians, especially in our town, who are super pretentious and super judgmental. Yeah. And they say shit like, can't stand her, she sucks.
Yeah.
And I'm like, dude, what the fuck are you talking about right now?
I always like to play the game when I have a band come in, and I need to restart that game because I haven't in a while. I need to like, when bands come in, ask them what their guilty pleasure is, and go like, hey, admit a band that you're semi-embarrassed to admit in front of your band that you actually really like, a band or a musician, because everybody has one, And when people go, well, what's your guilty pleasure? I'm like, well, I'm truly not embarrassed by anything I listen to, so technically the rule doesn't apply to me. But
if you had to,
if I had to pick one, I'd be like, okay, I absolutely love Paramore. Absolutely love that band, and I love everything about that band, and it's poppy and kind of schlock in many respects, but it's awesome, and I don't care. But it's like I really like Billie Eilish, I really like Lorde, I like London Grammar and a bunch of those bands and things like that. So it's just like whatever, good music's good music. Who cares?
I remember Pat Rulin's guilty pleasure was Enya.
Enya, yeah. I actually really like Yanni too. Yeah. Yeah, I really like Yanni, but I'm also Greek, so a lot of people aren't really surprised by that. They're like,
Yanni's from here?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
I don't think people understand how much music comes out of Minneapolis. It's kind of fucking crazy.
I think that going back to the rock band point, thing that you were saying though, is I think everybody equates the 90s rock blow up that Minneapolis had, like Husker Du and the Replacements and Soul Asylum and things like that. And then there was that second wave of really great bands who never really went anywhere other than being regionally really accepted, like Down and Above, and Red Over Lunar, and bands like that. A lot of the Blue Worm bands back in the day, right? Those bands were just exceptional rock bands. Dropping Daylight, Quiet Drive, all those bands, right? You just sit there and you go, yeah, those, and Quiet Drive was
a great band.
Yeah, they're still around, and as far as I know, they're still around. But as far as when they
didn't they change their name for a while when they got signed?
I know they put out 2 albums as Quiet Drive on major labels.
Okay, so maybe I'm just tripping.
But maybe they tried something.
They got signed by Warner Brothers, right?
Yeah. Yeah, you might be thinking of Skywine, because Skywine was Crash Anthem for a little while.
Yeah, I know.
It was also
I know about
fantastic.
those guys.
Yeah,
I know about those guys.
And they're playing shows again. I think I don't know if they just did the reunion, but they're a fantastic band too. But it's, as far as a lot of that goes, is I think a lot of people are kind of trying to rebel against that Minneapolis image, or maybe not accepting I don't really know, because we had such a huge rock scene in the 90s, and then we had that second wave in the 2000s, which was also fantastic, and it never really picked up again. And that's one of the reasons that it's why we're talking about Uncle Daddy and how great that band is.
And I think that genuinely hurt the scene. When there's not a great lineup of rock bands, I think it hurts the metal scene.
I agree. I think any time when there's a hole in the music scene is because. Okay, I'll use the perfect death metal example of what we're talking about here, right? I didn't wake up one morning and decide that I'm just going to listen to Carcass. That never happens that way. You sit there and you kind of you exposed to one thing and you're like, oh, I like that, and you're exposed to the next thing and you're like, oh, I like that, and you're exposed to the next thing and you're like, oh, I like that. It's the same thing with any music fan. So if you sit there and you go, you listen to for me, it was okay, the gateway for me was grunge, right? So grunge got me into heavier guitar and that kind of thing, which then got me into, the Bay Area thrash stuff, the Metallicas, the Megadeths, that kind of thing, which then got me into the little bit dirtier, a little bit more dangerous bands, the Slayers, the Panteras, that kind of thing. And then you go okay, cool. And well, what's the next thing? It's Morbid Angel. Okay, it's over. I'm a death metal fan now. Okay, I like death metal. But that's the same thing with rock and roll too. Is you got somebody who comes into music and comes into the local music scene because they like punk. Great. They're probably at some point going to get exposed to a hardcore band and go, oh, I kind of like that. Which maybe then if they go to a hardcore show, they're going to accidentally get exposed to a metal band and they're like, oh, I kind of like that. It's the whole idea of going, if you like music, you might find you like something else in music as well.
Yeah, and I think another thing is something that used to be very prominent in music marketing when it came to concerts. Joe Spanbauer was a huge proponent of this. This is where I really learned about it, but then you see it scaled. And what I mean by that for the listeners is bigger concerts, national level concerts and shit. He would book Banehinge, which was a brutal, I guess you would call them nu metal.
Yeah.
But they were not nu metal, but they were in that era. But they were, compared to everything else, they were fucking brutally heavy at that time.
Yeah.
There was barely any singing. It was just raw. And then he would book Ginger Jake on that same bill.
Yeah.
And then he would book Black Flood Diesel, which was a prototypical nu metal band coming from the American Head Charge sound and era. And then he'd have Stasia on that same bill, which technically I guess you could say was nu metal, but they were really just kind of like a hard rock band. Whereas Ginger Jake was kind of Paramore before Paramore was Paramore. Those 4 bands technically don't belong on a bill together, but that's exactly why it was a great bill. So is what you would have is you would have girls coming to see Stasia and Ginger Jake, but they'd drag their boyfriends along.
Yep.
And then the boyfriends would fall in love with Black Flood Diesel and Banehinge and vice versa.
Yeah.
So you were able to build a much larger crowd and a bigger fan base and a bigger music industry in totality. Whereas when you lose all of those rock bands, we had not Black Flood, but we had Stasia breakup, we had Ginger Jake breakup, we had Quiet Drive breakup, we had all of those bands from that early 2000s era break up at the same time.
Yeah.
And the metal scene ended up suffering as well.
Oh yeah.
I'm convinced, dude.
Yeah. It's the whole thing is like a music scene is a music scene. And a music scene to be strong needs to have a lot of good, diverse bands. Because if you have and we're all guilty of this, because trust me, I'm in 2 bands, I get it. But there's a lot of musicians playing in 5-6 bands, and when you have that situation, and you're not a drummer, because that's just the norm when you're a drummer, you play in 5-6 bands. But in all sincerity, it's like the whole idea is and I'm never going to dissuade anybody from doing different things musically. I think everybody should be able to do what they choose to do and that whole thing. But that when your entire music scene revolves around the same 20 or 30 people, that's when things really start to suffer.
Yeah.
So it's like, I'm it's like I could sit here and joke and like, I could joke about one of my former bandmates, Al Town, who I actually think very highly of. But it's like Al's in a bunch of bands, right? I love the fact that Al's in a bunch of bands because he's in a lot of bands that are very different. But the whole idea is going the same 30 people in all of the bands is the problem, right? Yeah. We have to have kids. We have to have young kids coming out starting new bands. We have to have different diverse musical things happening in order to benefit the entirety of the music scene.
So I think we're starting to have that now. And the problem is the old guard, and I'm saying this not as my opinion, I'm telling you this has been quoted to me.
Okay.
There is a large group of really great bands that are in the younger generation.
Yep.
Some of them aren't. Some of them are almost our age, but they came out after we did.
Yeah.
They were older when they started. We started when we were fucking 16, right?
Yeah.
But we're
too dumb to quit.
But I'm literally one of the only people from the old guard that goes out to these shows and supports these new local bands. We have this problem where what I call the old guard, the OGs, they're not going out and supporting these young kids or even seeing them. So there's entire groups of our crew that don't even know Uncle Daddy exists or Via exists. Via's another great local rock band.
Awesome band.
You call them Via?
Yeah. I think that's what is it Via or is it Via? I don't even know.
It might also be one of those things where
either way, they're a fantastic band.
The band members might not even agree because Eric Vobeda, the guitar player, says Via. That's why I say Via. But
that would be correct then.
The singer might say Via.
Yeah.
I don't fucking know.
Either way, they're great.
But Joe DeRocher from Revenant Soul, another phenomenal band. He's told me multiple times, he's like, dude, you're the only one from your generation that comes out to our shows. And he's not just talking about Revenant Soul, he's talking about that whole group: Stormbreaker, Uncle Daddy, Revenant Soul, Via,
Castor Valor, all those bands.
I haven't actually made it out to one of those shows, but yeah, that's another great example is that band, because I've heard nothing but good things about the Castor Valor boys. So I think that starts too, is like, we have to go show them some fucking love. You know what I mean? Because if we can show them some love and get them incorporated with all the knowledge that we know, dude, they're the ones bringing the people to the shows. Our bands don't draw anymore. They do, though. So if we combine forces, we can teach them all the knowledge and wisdom we have. And then we get some benefit out of it too, because we get exposure to an entire new generation of people under the age of 30 that will like our music. Why? Because we're fucking dope, bro.
Well, here's the other thing though too, is like there are definitely like bands, and there are definitely people who go like, they refuse to play all ages shows. That is the dumbest thing you can do as a musician. It's the dumbest thing you can do.
I agree that it's not only dumb, but it's probably the dumbest actual thing you can do, because those are real fans. Kids are fans. You get a kid to be your fan, that's a fan for life.
Yeah. We try and make a point in Plague of Stars. We need to do a better job of this, quite frankly, because Plague of Stars is really good at hopping on national bills and big shows and things like that, where it's like, oh, there's this band coming through, we become the prototypical, oh, you have a female singer, cool, you get to open for them band. I get it. It's we get that, we understand that, but at the same time we need to get out and play more shows like that,
especially if your music isn't sounding like the bands that are popular on the radio right now, because kids actively look for things that are against the grain. So like Plague of Stars is a great example, because you don't sound like anybody that's popular right now. So you could actually find an entire niche audience of kids that will be faithful fans for the next 20 years. And it's because they're 12 years old right now, and they literally want to listen to music that isn't on the radio or no one else knows about. They want to have that secret band, the anti-hero type deal,
Totally. And then like Coffin's the exact opposite. Is we try and and it's never been intentional again with Plague. It's like the wonderful thing about like Coffin is we make a point to play an all ages show, or at least a 15 plus show once every couple of months. And I would say that one of our biggest air quotes successes as a band is literally having fans that are all half our age, because that's the whole thing, is like, oh, hey, we're going to expose these kids who have never heard death metal, let alone this style of death metal or whatever it may be. And that kid's going to grow up to start another band. And it's really cool to be able to do that, because it's, oddly enough, it's our new guitarist was in a young band. It's Taylor Hageson, used to be in the band Agony Reigns.
Oh, I've heard
and he's our new guitar player, and he's been in our band. He's not our new guitar player. He's been in our band for over, almost 2 years now. But at the end of the day, he was the guy we knew as soon as he walked in the room and started playing the songs. We're like, he's the guy. We want this guy in our band. And everyone's like, well, he's quite a bit younger than you guys. We're like, we don't care. He's amazing. He's a great player. He's got a great attitude, and he's got a great head on his shoulders. We want to play shows with this guy. And we just love having him in the band. And we've made a point to try and reach out to some of those younger bands and everything. And admittedly, we need to do a better job of reaching out to bands across the, because Uncle Daddy and Coffin Rights have no business being on the same show, but that doesn't mean that we shouldn't play a show together.
Well, and that's what I was getting at earlier, right? Is like, not only does it make sense for the boyfriend-girlfriend thing, but the problem we ran into in the 2005 to 2008 era, before some of those bands like Dying Euphoria and For Blood, we started getting better and drawing real crowds again.
Yep.
One of the things we suffered from is we had the same 4 bands, essentially. It was like 10 bands, but we had the same 10 bands playing 4 band builds together over and over and over again. They all had the same 250 to 500 fans.
Right.
So you're just every 3 months you're playing to the same 250. There was no diversification. There was no exposure to new audiences. There was no nothing. And it just sort of died, like a slow whimpering death.
The other thing is, if we're talking about other lovely band advice too, if you can say, yes, the worst mistake you can make as a band is not play all ages show. I think the second biggest mistake that you can make as a band is oversaturating your home market. Mm-hmm. So it's like, if you're gonna play your market, if you're gonna play any market, multiple times in the span of a 90-day period, you have to ask yourself why, and there better be a good reason. So let me give you an example of what makes sense to go, hey, this would be a reason to do that, right? Because we did it a couple of months ago, and I even thought, does this make sense at the time, even though I went through the whole thing with my brain, right? Going one weekend, we played a death metal show. We opened up for the death metal band Inhuman Condition and Macabre and the Crusadist, and it was their tour, and we were one of the opening bands. And I'm sitting here going like, okay, should we take the show? Because 2 weeks later, we're playing the Beastface CD release show, which is another great metal band, and we were playing with their friends Echoes of the Fallen. So we're going to have 2 shows in the St. Paul, Minneapolis market in the span of 3 weeks. And I'm going, okay, does this make sense? And here was all the reasons that I went ahead and said, yes, it makes sense. One is a full-on death metal show. The other one is a show that actually has quite a bit of diversity in the bands themselves. One's a national show, one's a local show, one's a 15-plus show, one's a 21-plus show, one's a Minneapolis show, one's a St. Paul show. So you're sitting here and you're and you can look at those reasons. Plus, they were both events. One, national shows by nature are always events, and the other was a CD release show, which is also an event. So if you're literally breaking down your show offers like that, then it makes sense to say yes to those types of shows.
Yeah, we did that once too in Dining Euphoria. We did like can't remember what it was. We did like a regular local show in St. Paul.
Yep.
And then we did a national on Thursday. That's what it was. And then we did like a St. Paul or Minneapolis. No. We did the national. Doesn't matter. One of them was a national on a Thursday.
Yeah.
The next night, we did like a regular local show in Minneapolis or St. Paul. Whatever. It was the opposite of the one we had just played the night before.
Yep.
And then the following night on Saturday, we went down to Burnsville and played an all-ages show at the garage. All in one weekend, and it worked. But it was exactly what you described. One was an all-ages, one was a national, and I think the local one was a CD release party. But they were also... And the listeners don't know about this. Most of our listeners are not in Minnesota. Yep. Minneapolis, St. Paul are called the Twin Cities. We look at it as one community, but they're not musically. Most people from Minneapolis just don't go to shows in St. Paul because it's too far, or they're worried about getting pulled over,
people
or parking sucks. We don't cross the river.
I don't understand it. I'll never understand it.
It's true vice versa too. It's true vice versa too.
Absolutely.
St. Paul, they don't fucking like Minneapolis. They don't want to come over here. They don't come to shows here. So sometimes you book shows specifically like, well, we need to get into St. Paul.
Yeah.
It's 4 miles that way.
Yeah.
it's
especially
still
like somebody who grew up in, especially somebody who would grow up and go to shows regularly, like 2.5 hours from where he lived. It's like I've laughed at that reality since I've lived here, and I've lived here for 15 years, and it's never changed. It's never changed. It's like people are like, I don't want to go that far, and I'm like, dude, it's 3 miles. You live right off of 94, man. It's 3 miles. It's not that far. It's the stupidest logic, but it's real. And it's one of those things where it's like you need to acknowledge it's real, because if you don't, you're just lying to yourself.
Yeah, and the point is I think there's other towns like this, so you can get away with it, if you do it the right way. Duluth and Superior. You can get away with it if you do it the right way and you think about it logically. And again, we do this for fun because we love it. But if you want to be successful, or fuck success, that's such an arbitrary term, right? Let's say you just don't want to lose band members every 6 months to a year. You're better off running it like a business, because if you run it like a business, the chances of you being successful and keeping band members are significantly higher.
Yep.
Which is more fun. It sucks losing band members. You play a show a year because the rest of the year, every year, you're looking for a new drummer. Yeah. Like, I've luckily never really been in that situation, but I know a lot of people that have. They play 1 or 2 shows a year because they're constantly losing people. And their entire band's career is trying to fill out their lineup.
Yeah, yeah. And that sucks. It's like the whole point is, to just enjoy yourself and have fun, right? That's the whole point. It's the whole thing with the music scene is just like, look, if you want to be in whatever you deem successful, right? If you want to be a successful band that gets asked to play bigger shows, asked to play bigger events, asked to play national shows, whatever it ends up being, right? If you want to be asked to play more events, say no more often. Plain and simple. Just say no more often. It's completely okay to look at a band and say, I don't think it makes sense for us to play this show because we're doing XYZ. And that's okay. You're not saying like, hey man, your band sucks and I don't want to play with you. You're saying, I don't think it makes sense for us to play this show because we want your show to do well and we're playing there 2 weeks later or whatever it ended up being. You have to be able to do that, and have to be able to do that in a respectful way. The best thing you can do is suggest another great band that somebody maybe has never heard of, and go, hey, why don't you ask those guys to play? They're really good. Yeah. And then, oh, by the way, show up to that show if you're asked to. If you're in town, go to a show.
Well, yeah, and then go to those shows 2 weeks before yours and promote yours.
Yeah.
It's not that complicated. It's really not. You know what's crazy is there's this groundswell of, and I'd like to pretend I had something to do with this. Probably not, but it is odd that we've had this conversation multiple times on this show and now it's coming back. Physical flyers.
Yeah.
Like, people are going back to Kinko's, getting the neon paper or the white paper, whatever, printing their black and white flyer on it and physically handing it out again.
Yeah.
Because we were having this debate on this podcast for a long time. You were like, I liked it better when you used to go do this. And I was like, you realize no one's stopping you.
Yeah.
Like, no one said you can't pass out flyers. You guys just quit doing it and complained that everyone else also quit. just do it.
Yeah.
Like, just go hand out flyers and do the Facebook ads. You'll probably draw better than everybody.
Yeah.
6 months later, now all of a sudden, I'm hearing about bands like actually printing out flyers and promoters actually printing out flyers.
I'll look at the, speaking of hardworking bands, is like I think about the band Sunless from town, who's really good too, and really, really wonderful people as well. I don't think there's a band that I've seen hand out flyers at shows more than that band.
Really?
That band, and they're one of the biggest drawing bands locally in the cities too, as far as the metal scene goes. And they're also on Willow Tip Records, and their new record is fantastic if you haven't got it. But it's like that band is constantly handing out flyers, constantly, to the fact that it makes me sit here and go like, God damn it, I need to print out flyers more. It's crazy because I've gotten myself so disciplined in playing guitar regularly that I have to get myself disciplined in going, hey, if I'm going to a show tonight, I should probably bring some flyers with me.
Right.
It's that same like reteaching yourself thing. Because I'll tell you what happens with events on Facebook. Nothing happens with events on Facebook.
I don't even look at them anymore.
I don't look at them, and most people don't.
Facebook is so polluted with everything. Like, dude, I get notifications that people have made new posts.
Yeah.
And it's like, so-and-so just posted a new story or whatever. Like, click here to interact with it. And I'm like, that's not what my notifications are supposed to be for. So point being is I don't even look at my notifications anymore.
Yeah. They're
so like polluted, I think would be the word. Or diluted. Diluted would be a better word.
Yeah, it's the there's so much information that you just don't care about the information anymore thing. I used to actually, and this isn't because I got older or got more jaded, I used to like pay attention to go, okay, what's going on this Friday or Saturday night? And I would go look at the events and I would go see what's going on. Now it's a situation where if I don't hear about it, then I'm not going to.
Yeah.
Because and trust me, I appreciate everybody who's out there who like comes, records at the studio and that kind of thing, and is at my rehearsal space business and all that. But at the end of the day, man, I'm very connected in the music scene, so I get invited to everything, and I appreciate people like going, hey, we'd like to see you at our show. That's very nice that people think of me and invite me to that. But at the end of the day, I get so many of those, it's lost. Saying that it's lost its luster makes me feel like it's actually had luster to begin with, because clicking something doesn't actually mean anything. Right? It's really lazy promoting to basically sit there and go, here's a Facebook ad. I'm not saying don't do it, because some people only pay attention to that. What I am saying is that's not going to work for everybody.
Right.
It's just not. Your band page is gonna help push some things. What actually works in the social media world to get people out to your shows is posting shit on your personal page and posting shit on your personal story. That's what works. And from an algorithm standpoint, that's where social media actually matters from promoting a show. So social media.
Each platform's a little different too. Yep. So you got to like really understand what the purpose of each platform is. Like TikTok takes a while to build.
Oh yeah. Yep.
So don't post something on TikTok promoting something that's happening tonight or tomorrow night.
Yeah.
It's a waste of time.
Yeah.
If you're going to post on TikTok for a show Friday or Saturday night, you need to do that probably the Friday before.
The week before. Yeah.
Whereas Instagram, specifically the stories, those work really well, and that's a 24-hour deal.
Yep.
Whereas a post may not get seen at all, on Instagram. And then Facebook, it seems like Facebook is kind of fucked unless you pay.
Oh yeah.
Like you got to pay for those advertisements, and then it apparently works really well. But you're also casting a wide net. That's the thing, is you're exposing yourself to 100,000 people to get 400 to a show.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know if that's worth it for most people.
At the end of the day, the best way to get butts in seats, in my experience, is be a butt in the seat at a show previously.
Sure.
It's like if a band sees you at their show, they're going to want to come out and see you at you. And I hate to be that blunt about it, but it's just the truth. It's just one of those things where if you make an effort to go to their show, they're more inclined to make an effort to come to yours. And since the music fan base, at least in the metal world, currently is 90% other people in bands, that's why people come to shows, man. It's what we need to do is cast that wider net again, and that's where flyers come in. Yeah. That's where playing diverse shows comes in. That's where playing shows that are outside of your comfort zone come in. that kind of thing. So if you're a band and you want to play more often, awesome, go play more often, but don't play in Minneapolis more often. Don't play in St. Paul more often.
Right.
Go to Duluth,
Yep.
go to Menominee, go to Eau Claire, go to La Crosse, go to Fargo, go to Mankato, go to St. Cloud. There's
Fucking
plenty
Des Moines.
Go to Des Moines.
And build them in loops. Even if you got to do Weekend Warrior campaigns where you're hitting Duluth or you're hitting fucking Des Moines on a Friday night and you're hitting Lincoln, Nebraska on a Saturday, so you can be back to work on Monday morning. Do what you got to do. But I agree with you 100%. I don't think there's any flaws in this logic, and I also don't even think it's outdated. I think the only thing we need to do is adjust how when you and I came up, it was like once every 60 days in town.
Yeah.
I think now it's 90 to 120 days because people have ready available access to your music and your music videos online, to where if you're playing more than every 3 or 4 months in your own town, you're probably already oversaturated. And what I mean by town is, in our situation, is Minneapolis, St. Paul.
Yeah. And
Mankato is not our town. That's a different town.
Yeah. And a good way to kind of talk about that too is, and when you're talking national, like you're talking national, like local shows is what we're talking about, right?
Yep.
If you're opening up for 3 national acts in 3 months, that show's going to do just fine for your band, but nobody's there to see you.
Right.
You need to remember that nobody goes to a national show to see you.
Right.
Which
ironically though, you just reminded me of something. The bookers don't book you for that though. Like, you're probably not going to get 3 national shows in 3 months, because the reason you're being booked as an opener is to bring 500 people to that show to help sell out. That's why you're on the bill as a local opener. So you're probably, but it does happen. There are certain, you just got a good relationship with this guy and he's throwing you great shows. But yeah, you're taking those shows because you're relying on the nationals audience and exposure. That's why you're doing 3 shows in 3 months for nationals, is because you're that's, 15,000 people we can play in front of over the next 90 days. You're not going to get that anywhere else.
Right.
So that does make sense to do, but those are few and far between. So guys, don't fucking hang your hat on the idea. Well, Will said, we could do it this way. True, but
yeah, you should never. I mean, quite frankly, it's like you can listen to as much or as little as this as I want. I've been preaching the same shit for the last 10 years of my life, and people still don't listen to me. So it is what it is.
Bringing it back to where we started the whole conversation is like, you actually have to do the work. You actually have to we can preach, and I've been doing it for a while too. I've been doing this podcast now for almost 2 years, and I'm blown away how little people listen.
Yep.
And we continuously have successful people on the podcast talk about these things, and unsuccessful people talk about what not to do. Like, this is how we fucked up, and I still see motherfuckers doing it all the time. You can put the knowledge out there, but it's literally the lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink.
Totally.
That's literally what we're dealing with.
Yeah. And I mean, it's that you have to find, and yes, all of us have jobs and all of us have lives, and a lot of us, have relationships and other things that happen in our lives that aren't just music. We get it. I get it. I respect that. I understand it. It doesn't mean that you can't take a little bit here and a little bit there and get a little bit better every time. It's that whole idea of like, hey, if your object is to finish the record, you miss all the cool things that happen while you're making the record argument again, right? Or if your object is to bench 400 pounds, you miss all the milestones and all the great memories that go into getting to that line, that whole thing. It's, at the end of the day, nobody's 100% perfect. I admitted that there's a lot of things, and I got lazy for a while too when social media started. I'm just like, I can just make this little thing and pay $10 and it will automatically make people come to my shows. And I realized real quick that didn't work. And I tried Facebook advertising over the years and had varying degrees of success with it and that kind of thing, and learned a lot from it. But yeah, I agree with you. I'm like, if you want your band page to reach anybody on Facebook these days, you need to pay for it, and I'm not going to.
And it's like a minimum of like $200 to make it effective. Like, if you're spending less than $200 on these Facebook ads, and I'm not saying this because I know, I'm saying this because there's guys I follow on social media that this is what their whole deal is giving this advice because they run companies that do this, right? Yeah. And basically they're saying the minimum you can spend to promote a post to have any real effectiveness is about $200. And people are immediately like, oh my God, you can't expect people to afford this. How can that? And it's like, listen, motherfucker, this is just what it is.
Yeah.
Like, we used to go drop $200 on flyers.
Yep.
Why is it crazy to drop $200 on an internet ad? It's not.
Yeah.
And your $200 on the internet goes much fucking farther. Much farther. Like I said, you're reaching 20, 30,000 people. when we spent $200 on flyers, we were getting 5,000, maybe 10,000 flyers. And then we had to physically hand them out, which a lot of them got thrown away.
Yep.
And the rest of them stayed in our trunk because we almost never actually passed out all the flyers.
Right.
Almost never.
Yeah. Right.
So I think, just to kind of bring this back where we started this, is like, I think the new, just like the argument between like modeling amps or tube amps, right?
Yeah.
I think the combination is the answer. Like, get your modeling amp and then run it through your preferred clean tone on whatever amp you want. Mesa, 5150, doesn't care.
Yeah.
That modeling amp and that tube sound together are going to create real magic. Same thing, like if you create a ground campaign of handing out physical flyers at the Target Center and the Excel Center and the Armory, and then you go spend $200 on a coordinated Facebook ad to launch your new single and promote your CD release show,
Yep.
I bet you that'll fucking work. I bet you suddenly you'll have 500 people in the room now, motherfucker.
Yeah, yeah.
But bands look at $400 like it's unreasonable. Dude, still to this day, Skyline pays for an actual billboard for every show that they play locally.
Yeah.
Every fucking show they play locally, when you're driving down 694 or 35, at some point in time, you will see a Skywind billboard advertising their show at the Doghouse. And they have a budget for that. Like, they actually think about this. We're booking this show. Here's how much our advertising costs are going to be leading up to that show.
Yep.
It's not fucking rocket science. I'm not saying it's easy, but it's not actually complicated.
Right. Right. And I'm definitely not saying that a band should have their first show like pay for a billboard, but at the end of the day,
no, definitely not your first show. No.
But it's one of those things where you sit there and it's like you grow into that. There's not a single successful band where you're sitting there going like, oh, this band's so great, they came out of nowhere. No successful band came out of nowhere.
Even Sebastian Bach, that's one of my favorite rock and roll stories of all time. When people said Skid Row came out of nowhere, he's like, people used to give us shit saying we were an overnight success. He goes, that's not true. It took us at least 2 or 3 days.
I like how Jay's sitting on these comments going like, I'm here for the Facebook and just saying.
Shout out to Jay. This is a great conversation. He's digging it. I appreciate you, man. Thank you, buddy. This is a great conversation. That's why I love having you guys on and doing this style podcast. Is I think it is great to sit down and have these conversations because this just doesn't happen enough anymore.
Well, it's like the whole idea of like actual conversations are so few and far between that it's like, everything's content these days, right? And I'm not dissuading anybody from listening to podcasts. Podcasts are awesome and I listen to them constantly. When I'm not listening to music, it's the other thing I listen to because I don't give a shit about sports radio. But it's the whole thing is like, look, if you like something or if you appreciate something, please do something about it. So I appreciate you having me on here.
100%, dude. And it's funny because it took so long because of the pandemic to get you on the first time.
Oh yeah, I was so sick.
Well, plus, I mean, you've got your own pre-existing health shit, and we didn't know what was going on. Plus, the versions of the virus were way scarier back then. The Delta was not nothing to be fucked with.
Right.
So it took a while, but dude, that entire time, that first 6 to 9 months or an entire year, whatever it was before you finally came on.
Yeah.
Like every third guest was like, dude, you got to get Will on here. You guys have so much in common, and you guys would have such great conversations.
People realize that like we grew up in the music scene together. Do people not know that we already know each other?
We've known each other for years.
Yeah.
Like before, and that's the weird thing is you and I are like two fucking like bodies in space that keep running into each other and orbiting each other for a while, and then we go off somewhere else, and then we come back and orbit each other because we had bands in the scene together. Then we both ended up at Guitar Center together.
Yep.
And then we both expanded within the music industry together.
Yep.
Separately, but together. Post Guitar Center, you're doing your studio thing. I'm doing the podcast thing, and they're all kind of collaborating still to this day. And it's a really, really cool thing. I just really want us to start centralizing these things. And I think one of the linchpins for this was Greg getting some control over Skyway. So now we as a community have direct access to a venue. We don't have to go through obscure bookers or hopes and prayers anymore. We can actually start like creating a game plan, just like back in the day when we had Shannon Brettel and Bill Berry and Joe Spanbauer. Look, we got these 3-4 clubs with these 3 people. You can get a show. You may have to start on a Wednesday night, like Joe used to make us do at Station 4 on Tuesday and Wednesday night. But hey,
Yep.
It didn't. If you were even remotely good, you'd get a Friday night or a Saturday night, and you worked your way up. And I think that's also a big problem that bands are having is they don't understand that as an opening act, benching 400 is headlining.
Yeah.
They want to go straight to headlining.
Yeah.
People who've never paid their dues don't understand you have to open.
Yeah.
Like you need to do this for like 6 months every weekend in order for you to be worth playing second or third or fourth on a bill.
Right.
Guys don't want to do that. They're like, oh, we want to play in front of the better crowd. It's like, yeah, we all fucking do.
Yeah. Yeah.
The difference is these other 3 bands have earned it. You're new. You got to open for a while. Pay those dues, do the work, enjoy the journey, because someday you're going to be looking back on this laughing about when you were an opening band struggling to get paid $200.
Hey, thanks, Jay. We'll have a good day. Appreciate it, brother.
Oh, I was telling people, throw your questions in. We'll start working them in now.
Yeah, well, we could wax idiotic about music all day long, and that's half the fun of coming on this show. And when you ask me to come on again, I'm like, yep, here's what I actually have open now, because when people like when it's like a lot of people don't know us, and I'm totally fine with saying so. It's like when I was when COVID was happening, I was super sick, and all that kind of thing. I had a lot of health issues going on at the time, and it just was going like, man, I don't know what the hell's going on with me. So it's like we're kind of alluding to that whole thing of going like, yeah, man, I don't know if I have cancer or if I need to have my gallbladder out. And the answer is I had to have my gallbladder out, thankfully.
Jesus.
Yeah. So that was like that was kind of the moment of like, I don't know what the fuck's going on with me, man. My stomach is not acting normal. And it's like none of the symptoms I'm having lined up with any one thing. It just turned up. I had like 3 things going on simultaneously, and we had to figure that all out piece by piece. And now I actually feel like a human again 2 years later.
Fucking brutal, dude.
Yeah, it was not fun.
So it was just pure coincidence all that happened at the beginning of the pandemic then?
Yeah. It's the, my wife and I there's no doubt in my mind we both had COVID super early on. We were both super sick, and then then I got all my GERD issues going on. Then I had like my Barrett's esophagus crap going on. Then I had to get my gallbladder removed because every time I ate, I'd like feel like I had a bomb go off in my stomach. It was not pleasant stuff. It was not a fun experience. It was like emergency room back and forth like over the course of like a couple weeks. It was not a fun time. So and it was really fun like dealing with hospitals at that time too, of going like, hey, I don't have COVID, I think, but something's wrong and I need to go to the hospital. So
have you played any shows during the pandemic?
I mean, technically, yeah, because the pandemic's still alive and well. It's just dissuading. Yeah, we started playing. I think our first show back with Coffin was August.
That's right. You did mention that.
Yeah, July or August of last year, and then I think Plague of Stars. We played our first show back like February or something of last year. I mean,
okay.
It's all kind of. I'm like August of like 2020,
right?
And then like 2021 was like February, I think, for Plague. And yeah, it's been a little weird.
There was restrictions and capacity issues and things like that. I think all that's been lifted now, or it will be in the next few days.
Yeah, it has been. It's pretty much, for lack of a better way to put it, it's everything is kind of pre-pandemic rules at this point.
Right.
There's definitely still venues, and you know what? At the end of the day, I don't really care where you're at politically on that, because I don't think it's any of your business. If it's a business decides to run a business that way, you can choose to patronize it if you want.
No, I agree, and that's not where I was going with it. Where I was going with it is, are you excited to potentially play to a real crowd again?
Yes.
Because that is one thing. When I went out to crowds, I was like, dude, these guys are drawn. And a couple of my friends came out and they're like, dude, there's like 300 people here. I'm like, that's a fucking big deal in the pandemic.
Yeah.
Like, dude, fuck off.
Yeah.
Like, you sound like my stepdad. Like, oh, you're like, I'm like,
there's
dude,
only 300 people here.
I'm like, we sold out the Rock. And he's like, well, it was at the Target Center. It's not like you're Metallica. I'm like, what the fuck, dude?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, we just sold out 1,000-person venue and you're going to be a dick about it?
Exactly.
But he didn't really understand. And I don't think, and these were musicians, but I don't think they really understood either. I'm like, dude, 300 people in the middle of the pandemic is a big fucking deal.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So
yeah, we've thankfully been able to do a lot of really good shows, and we were smart about the shows we said yes to. I think we were anyway, and that whole idea for both bands, and it's little by little, it's kind of returning back to how it felt before, which has been really fun. I'm hoping that continues, but obviously it's obviously it's kind of up to us doing the work and making sure that it continues. Because there was the initial excitement of like, yay, music's back, and people came to shows because music was back, and I'm like, you're going to get that initial kind of front push for that reason, and we knew that. But at the same time, we just go, okay, well, what can we do to keep that going, and what can the rest of the music scene do as a way of keeping that going and that kind of thing. And little by little, we lost a lot of bands, but we're starting to gain some new bands. Bands are starting to get out and play again more regularly. More and more people are coming to shows more regularly, which is great. It's been quite pleasant. I'm gonna play the biggest show that I've ever played this summer, personally. At the age
I'm at. Rockfest?
I'm talking about Rockfest. Yeah, Plague of Stars.
Congratulations, by the way, you guys are doing Rockfest this year. That's a big fucking deal, and I think it's awesome, man. Because typically Rockfest is straight up rock bands or cover bands.
Yeah, a lot of cover bands, a lot of tribute bands.
To be an original metal band.
Yeah.
Let alone essentially death metal.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're strictly death metal. I don't know if the death metal purists would accept you as death
Plague of
metal.
Stars is death metal purists would definitely not, because we have clean vocals.
right?
Yeah.
You see what I'm getting at?
Yeah.
But it's a big deal and it's a huge accomplishment. And I wanted to make sure I said like legit congratulations.
Thank you.
Because that is not something that's very common for a real brutal original metal band to get on Rockfest, dude. Congrats, bro. I'm happy for you, man.
Thanks. It's there's a lot of really great bands on Rockfest this year, and I'm definitely not, by what I'm about to say, I don't want it to come across the wrong way, but we are by far the heaviest local regional band on that show.
Bro, it's
like,
a low bar. It's a low bar, bro.
Yeah.
Like your high jump didn't, you only had to get to about 3'6" to get over that bar, dude.
The other locals are great bands. We just happen to be a metal band.
Like a true metal band. Like it's a really hard rock band that classifies themselves. No. You guys are a fucking metal band.
Yep.
Like I said, if not just straight up death metal.
Yeah.
I think it's fucking awesome. What else you got to plug and promote?
Oh, dude, we got a bunch of shit going on. I probably should have wrote in a list, but yeah, we've got we're announcing this officially tomorrow, so I guess I'm officially announcing this today. As Coffin Rights is going to open up for Decrepit Birth in July. We're super excited about that.
Dope,
one of our favorite.
Where's that? That's
going to be at the Caboose. That's going to be a 15+ show for folks that were listening to an earlier comment. Yeah, bring your younger brothers, sisters, and everything. That's going to be a good time. Get them enjoying new music. That's going to be a great tour. Lots of other things are cooking. We're planning on doing a little road trip in September. We're planning a nice little short tour. Got to plan out all those lovely details. And Plague of Stars is working on a new album after Rockfest, so that's going to be the rest of our year after that. So
dope, dude. And where can people get updates for all this stuff? Is it all at 1459 Studios, or do they got to go to each band's?
Go to each band's respective socials. Plague of Stars and Coffin Rights, RITES, and check us out on the various socials. You can find us on the YouTubes, the Instagram, social, Facebook, all those lovely things. Follow us on however you choose, and you can follow my studio at 1459 Studios, also on the socials, or 1459 Studios MPLS.
Dope. And I think I have the links in the bottom. The only thing I don't have in the description, if you're still watching, if Chili's still watching, put Skyway Theater's direct URL, just put it right in the comments right now, or down below in the post-show comments thing, whether it's live chat or not.
We're excited to be we're excited to be at the old the Skyway Theater this weekend. That's gonna be a lot of fun. Lich King is some friends of ours, actually. Tom plays in another band with the bassist of Lich King as well, so we're kind of a little family reunion, despite those guys being East Coasters. So.
And that's this Friday or this Saturday?
This Saturday.
Gotcha.
This Saturday.
Well, dope, dude. Well, let's wrap this up, man. It looks like people don't have any questions, so you guys know what to do. Thank you guys for hanging out with us. I appreciate you being here. Well, it was a great time.
Yeah, appreciate
we'll have
it.
to do this again. What is it like? What are we doing? Like every 3 to 6 months?
Every 3 to 6 months. We'll see what happens.
So what are we in March? So you'll probably be back. Yeah, actually that makes perfect sense. We'll time it up for June or July to promote that Caboose show.
We'll do it before Rockfest. It'll be a good time.
Sick. All right. Thank you guys. Like, subscribe, share. You guys know what the drill is.